Hello, and a big welcome to all of you joining us for the final day of the semis here at the Skilling Open, the first stop of the Champions Chess Tour. The Chess Tour is going to feature three majors, six regulars, and one final. This is the very first event, and it has been an absolute nail biter, had us on the edge of our seats, and the semi-final day one was no different. Let's take a look at the results from day one. So the clash Magnus Carlsen versus Jan Nepomniachtchi was absolutely red hot, with Jan Nepomniachtchi actually having some great chances in game two and game three. He did lose the first game in a disappointing manner with an opening blunder, but then he was not able to make the most of winning positions, or at least way better positions in game two, game three. Magnus managed to hold on and with that won their set one. Hikaru Nakamura, Wesley So was a much more in control match. Wesley So did look like he had everything the way he wanted. Just absolutely calm and pragmatic play. He struck when he got the opportunity, and Hikaru never really got any real chances in that match, which means today is the final set. And Jan and Hikaru have to win to take it to playoffs. Magnus and Wesley needing only a draw to advance to the finals. Let's take a look at the format for today. So we're going to be having 4 rapid games, time control 15 minutes with a 10-second increment per moves. The players are going to play 4 games, and in case Jan Nepomniachtchi and Hikaru Nakamura win their match, then we're going to witness a playoff with 2 blitz games, 5 minutes with a 3-second increment. And in case that's a tie as well, then we move on to everyone's favorite, the Armageddon. All right, let's take a look at what the players are fighting for. Lots at stake. The winner goes home with $30,000, the runner-up with $15,000. Tour regular tournaments are going to have a total prize fund of $100,000, while the majors will have $200,000 as the total prize fund, and the final $300,000. The $1.5 million Champions Chess Tour is going to put some of the best, not some, all the best players in the world in this format to test, to see who's got the speed, who's got the accuracy, who's got the nerves, and then we will know who really is the best player in the world in these shorter time controls. Now, we started with 16 participants, and at the end of today, we're going to be left with only 2 players. And you know what the big news is. It is, in fact, the absolute dynamic innovations in this tour, including giving a lot of power to our audience to actually bring back one player who did not qualify into the quarterfinals, bring them back into the tour. And remember, the December leg is a major. Now, you don't only get it for this tournament, but throughout the tour, every event, the audience will get 1 vote to bring back their favorite player. And I'm going to try and show you how it's done, and in the process, cast my vote as well. And I'm really quite stressed about that, but let's see how it goes. Give me a moment while I bring it up. So step number 1 is to go on championschesstour.com. Let me share my screen so that you can see. And sorry about that, just 1 second. All right, so I think you should be able to see my screen, and that's the official website of the tour. Championschesstour.com is where you have to go, and here you'll get all the information regarding the tour. You can see all the events that are going to be taking place. This is the other big advantage of going premium. Right now, we've got a very big deal on the biggest ever reduction of 50%. A 50% off on going premium. You get the opportunity to challenge the players, the participants of the tour in banter blitz as well as hand and brain. And here you'll get all the information you need. Now you can see on the left side of my screen the 8 players who did make it in the standings. And if we just scroll down, these are the ones who finished in the bottom half. what we want to do is go here. Now, if you're not a premium member already, you are going to have the option to go premium when you open the website. You go on vote your favorite player. Let's do it. I hope it works. And there we have it. And it takes you to the page that you want to go and where you have to cast your vote. And here we see, now this is actually our brilliant TV setup that is in Oslo. We have a broadcast from there with Kaya Snare, International Master Jovanka Haska, and Grandmaster David Howell. You can check that commentary out as well on our channels. Now, if you just go down, and this is just so stressful because I have no idea what I'm about to do. There we have it. Vote back in Skilling Open. Players, who do you want to be voted back into the major in December? The big question. All right. There's Lei Kwang Liam, there's Ding Liren, Vidit Gujarati, David Anton, Peter Swidler, Sergey Karyakin, Jan-Krzysztof Duda, and Alireza Firouzja. Oh my God. All right. I have no idea why I signed up to do this live, but yes, here we are. Now, of course, like I mentioned, it's not just for this event, but throughout the tour, you're going to have the opportunity to vote one player back into the Champions Chess Tour who doesn't qualify for the quarterfinals. These are the 8 players who didn't make it. And with great power comes great responsibility. All right, what are we going to do? So the 2 names that come to mind who I think I would, and of course, I think every player on this list, we want to see them back, and we are going to see them back, I'm sure, through the course of the year. But for me, the tough fight is between Alireza Firouzja and Vidit Gujarati. Now, I think both these players would do phenomenally through the course of the tour because we've seen them, how they played in the preliminaries. And my heart is beating really fast because I really don't know who I have to pick. And I'm just wondering if I can get 2 votes, staff privileges, staff discounts. We do have a confirmation that I cannot get 2 votes. And if I don't hurry up, I'll probably get fired from this job. So let me see. All right. You know what? I see Peter Leko has joined us. And I think that's a sign because I do know he picked Alireza as his vote, as the one he would choose to vote. So I am going to go with, drum rolls, Vidit Gujarati. All right, I really think that Vidit showed phenomenal chess in day 2 and day 3, and we saw the kind of difference in Alireza's play when he's got the opportunity to play against the best players in the world in the first edition of the tour. And I think Vidit, all that was missing for him was the experience that's required in such format against these big guys. All right, so you have to cast your vote, and then you just put in your username, and then you're done. That's how we do it. It's really, I think it's a very exciting dynamic to give the power to the audience to bring back one player into the tour. All right, let's get back to the other stuff. Now, it's we were talking about how the tournament started with 16 participants, and today we've got 4. It's the final day of the semis. We're going to be left with just 2 tour participants at the end of it. It's always very difficult to deal with losses and difficult days, and I think that's something we all struggle with. So we thought, why not ask the best players in the world what is it that they do to deal with difficult situations? Take a look at this.
The first hour is I'm okay. I usually go over the game. Then I try to pretend that I'm not hurt, but eventually it catches up with me. So the first hour is probably one of the best ones.
If I'm exhausted, then it can get really sad.
Immediately I get angry or upset. Then after that I just get sad, and I just want to lay on the bed and do nothing for a while.
What happens after I lose a game is that I break stuff, and then I use the next hour putting these things together again.
Sometimes you cannot sleep, and then maybe sometimes the next day you cannot forget about that game too. During tournaments, I try not to think too much about that because I don't want it to affect my upcoming games.
I used to have problems with it when I was a child. I was like destroying stuff sometimes even, I believe. When you are and you want to be the best, you know, you have to be like, you know, angry.
And that's what chess is about. You know, one player has to win, somebody has to lose. But you know, there's one place where everybody is a winner, and that's Twitter, because these guys have some Twitter skills. Let's take a look at what got our action on Twitter sphere. Let's bring them up. Grandmaster Jonathan Tistel, big karma return on that mouse slip. He's talking about the Magnus Carlsen Jan Nepomniachtchi matchup. Now, we remember from our preliminaries the big drama that happened on day one. Magnus in a completely winning position, playing that move Queen B4 instead of Queen B5, a huge mouse slip, which just ended the game on the spot, and Magnus was dead winning there. So Jonathan is referring to that. Yesterday, on day one, Jan Nepomniachtchi had some winning positions, was doing really well, and we were expecting a big comeback from him in game 2 and game 3, but misplayed, mishandled, and you know how resourceful the world champion is. When you get those winning positions against him, or you're better, you have to make a go for it, because he can just make things extremely difficult. I don't know if it was karma or it was just resourcefulness on Magnus's side, but either ways, we're in for a real fight today. All right, Wesley. So I feel very good today, but at the same time, I think Hikaru played subpar. This was the interview that Wesley had with Kaya Snare on our TV in our TV studio, and Wesley is, as always, just the modest, pragmatic Wesley, just like we love him, but he is such a monster on the board. And we were talking about this, that there is this feeling that he's extremely solid and strategic as a player. But as Sam and Peter pointed out, that in fact, he's a very dangerous dynamic player. And I think Hikaru has his task cut out. If anyone can do a comeback in style, it's Hikaru, but Wesley, a very difficult opponent to come back, to win and come back against. All right, Hikaru, so it turns out there is more to this tournament. There is more, and the action doesn't stop with this tournament, because like we were saying, we've got 10 events in the entire tour. It is going to be an absolutely epic year of chess. Have us on the edge of our seats. But yes, for today, we've got our final set of semifinals. What else we have? Mr. Dodgy, who's launched a full-fledged Vote for Swidler campaign on Twitter. Based on the quarterfinals, Nepo and Hikaru are big favorites today. Of course, Jan Nepomniachtchi and Hikaru Nakamura were our comeback kids in the quarterfinals. Let's not forget how difficult their day one in the quarterfinals was. And then just when you thought it was all over, what a spectacular show they put up on day 2. And if that's anything to go by, anything can happen today. And then Danger Mouse, one of our premium members on Chess24. I agree the fair thing to do is to vote for Ali Reza, but life isn't fair. Hashtag vote Swidler. Now, Peter Swidler is a huge fan favorite, and I'll give you a little bit of an inside info. The race with the votes is extremely close. Now, before I say anything more and actually get fired from my job, just go. This is an absolute no-brainer, and your time to go and exercise that power and vote for your favorite player to come back into the event. I'll be rooting for Jan and Hikaru during today's Scaling Open, because more chess is better than less chess. That's not just me saying it, that's science. John, I couldn't agree with you more. I think we as chess fans, as chess audience, are kind of, I mean, may the best player win and yada, yada, yada. But who doesn't want to see a playoff, and who doesn't want to see an Armageddon? Okay, with that, just a moment. With that, let's bring in the one and only Grandmaster Peter Leko. Peter, hi.
Yeah, hello, Tanya. Hello, everybody.
Peter, we were just talking about all that is required to be done today, and there's just one thing really to be done. For Jan Nepomniachtchi and Hikaru Nakamura to strike back, and that's their only chance at a playoff. Do you think, what are the chances? Do you think that's a possibility?
Well, there is certainly a possibility. However, the point is that in the quarterfinals, we have seen 3 comebacks from 4 matches. That was some kind of a miracle. And if you go by statistics, then one has the feeling that, okay, it can't go on forever like this. I mean, those guys who got the advantage, who are leading, are incredible players. So it's kind of the natural cause that they might keep their lead. However, okay, both Jan Nepomniachtchi and both Hikaru Nakamura are so dangerous that they can eventually do it. I believe that the very first game of the Jan Nepomniachtchi Magnus Carlsen game is critical because Jan had 2 big opportunities yesterday to come back, but he missed. And now he starts with the white pieces. So he really has to put Magnus under some kind of pressure to force Magnus take risk, get out of his comfort zone, and maybe not win the first game. But if Magnus feels that Jan was close with the white pieces, he might be taking more risk with the white pieces in the second game. That would again give then Jan more chances to counter. So some new dynamic should appear in order to get a chance to bounce back against Magnus.
And let's take a look at what the people of Instagram had to say about that. On day 2, Magnus maintains just how big a favorite he was earlier, with 88% saying that Jan is perhaps not going to make it today. On day 2 of the semifinals between Hikaru and Wesley, we see a big shift here. Peter, 82% of Instagram was sure that Hikaru is the one who's going to make it in day 1. But look at that. On day 2, just the Hikaru fans are just feeling the heat with Wesley. Now, Peter, you saw that we were casting our vote and how it's done on the website. What do you think about my pick?
Well, I mean, it's logical. I mean, the whole point is that everybody deserves to be back. It was really such a thrilling preliminary stage. We have witnessed all kinds of dramas, everything. I mean, for example, for me personally also, I feel very sad and very bad for Dingley Ram because he was playing middle in the night, definitely was not able to show his very best. We know exactly what he's capable of. But that's life. I mean, if you have an online event and the best players in the world are coming from all around the world, then somebody has to be in an awkward position. That's just physics, so you cannot avoid that. He fell victim of this, so if the public votes him back, it's also perfectly understandable. Let the people vote, let the premium members decide. I think it's great that there is this opportunity. I'm pretty sure that the players love it as well because they feel that maybe there is a hope to get back to this fantastic tournament.
I couldn't agree more with you, Peter. Just about everyone on that list deserves to be back. And I just went for an easy choice with my friend Vidit, who was, I think his performance was really phenomenal, especially in the last 2 days. And I know it's about experience. And I hope to see him back on the tour, just like we do with every other player on that list. You have until tomorrow to cast your votes. So go premium now and use this opportunity to bring your favorite player back in December. And another reminder, you will have this chance in every tour event to bring one player back if they don't qualify for the next event. Besides, of course, the opportunity to challenge our players in different formats like Hand and Brain in the Q&As. You also get access to several videos by world champions, which will help you improve your own game in the process. So no better time to go premium, as there's a Black Friday sale on, the biggest reduction ever on Chess24 with a 50% off. And with that, we have lift off, Peter. So let's get to the chess action.
Yeah, and we have 2 e4s on the board. Magnus still haven't made his answer to e4. I'm actually expecting e5. That's exactly what Hikaru has been doing against Wesley So. However, we don't see any Berlin. Hikaru immediately shows his intentions that he's ready to gamble. He's ready to take risk also with the black pieces. And he goes for a kind of hybrid Spanish. I mean, with g6. He's trying to tear the game into some unfamiliar territories right from the start. So Wesley went for c3, bishop g7, short castle. Magnus still haven't made his move yet. Knight g7, d4. This is all kind of fairly standard. I mean, this whole line is not that often played on the highest level. However, this is the most critical and most typical reaction from white side. White tries to grab the center immediately. Black captured on d4 with the pawn. Black took back, white took back with the c pawn. So white got a very nice center, and black tries to counter the center with d5. E takes d5 is on the board. And also Nepomniachtchi Carlsen game is on. E4, e5, knight f3. The big question for me is, will Jan allow the Berlin defense, or will he go for the Italian? What will be, and we see bishop b5. And Magnus says no Berlin, my friend. A6, bishop a4. Wow, that's another huge surprise. And we see Magnus, he's so flexible of his opening choices. He did play he pretended to try to play the Sveshnikov. Then it became an accelerated dragon in the very first game. Then probably Jan was kind of ready for that. Then Magnus changed to Berlin. And now when probably Jan is already ready for the Berlin, then suddenly Magnus switches back to classical Spanish. Very, very tough to adjust to such a player.
Jan and Magnus have known each other forever. They've grown up together, played in the same age groups. And we also know that, in fact, it was Jan who always had a better score against Magnus, especially when they were young. Do you think these dynamics of knowing each other so well, it kind of plays on their minds? They've also worked together. They've also helped each other with training. So do you think that's something that they have to think about with their opening choices and their approach? Does it affect that?
I don't think that really opening-wise it matters that much, because, Magnus has changed so much. When they were kids, then it was a completely different game. I believe that Magnus is the one player from them who knows the openings deeper. He has a better understanding of them because he has simply played all those World Championship matches. He has a group of helpers for already a lot of time, while Jan Nepomniachtchi has been always, a wizard and a brilliant player, but he was not stable. So he was like jumping into the top 10, then he was jumping out, then he was jumping back in, showing his potential. And I believe that the last 1.5 years has showed that he's taking it more and more seriously. He's working probably much harder than before. At least his results show this, and he has established himself among the top 5 players in the world. And that's a huge step forward. If he can build on this and keep it going and be able to make 1 or 2 more steps forward, then he can be really very, very strong. And strong in order to challenge Magnus also in classical game.
And there we have it on our screen, world number 1 and world number 4 in a very crucial set for Jan Nepomniachtchi. He must win on demand to take it to the playoffs. And it was quite interesting, Peter, because in the post game yesterday with Kaya, Jan also mentioned that, I think it was Magnus actually who mentioned that, that blunder that was made with Queen B8, the only decisive game from yesterday in their set 1, was actually something that he had looked with Magnus before the 2014 Sochi tournament.
Yeah, probably that was kind of the period when they were still working together. I don't know exactly their common story. I do remember maybe in 2012 was the first official announcement that, there is this cooperation between these 2 extraordinary players. So that was kind of really huge. But later then I do not really have any big information. That was a big revelation. I didn't know that kind of Jan was in any way part of Magnus's preparation team for the World Championship match against Vichy in Sochi. But that was really interesting. And we see here this classical opening, but with the move 10 d4, White is basically spicing things up. He doesn't want to go the slow way. The slow way would be something like h3 or knight f1. But basically by making all those natural moves, bringing the knight to g3, white is losing some tempos, which black can try to use in order to get active in the center with some timely b5, d5. With the move d4, he's kind of forcing action. He grabs the center, so black has to show that, you know, you missed out on h3, so let me try to make good use of it with the pin. Another big question is that after h3, bishop h5, g4, which is the most critical way, will Magnus, for example, sacrifice the piece, which is very interesting. I mean, this is a typical position which I have analyzed in the year 2013 a lot. Back then, this was a very important position for theory. There haven't been really high quality games on it. Or black goes for the move bishop g6 here when this bishop in long terms can be out of place. So very interesting to see how Jan will react to this.
Absolutely, Peter. And also, while Jan thinks how he wants to react, whether he wants to go for h3 and that piece sacrifice line that you were showing, before we switch actually to the Hikaru, Wesley, what you mentioned that you had seen this extensively in 2013. What's the eventual evaluation or the conclusion of this very dynamic line?
Yeah, well, I think it's typical in modern, and Jan goes for knight f1. I think it's very typical for modern chess that whenever a new engine appears, or when you get a new supercomputer or whatever, I mean, access to a supercomputer, then you have to recheck all these lines, because all these complications, some older engines were probably showing like 0-0 after a lot of complications. Then some new program comes, he brings up some new ideas for one of the sides, and it changes a little bit. It goes back and forth, so you have to keep an eye. It's very difficult to give a definite final judgment about it. Only future practical games can show how it really goes. But after knight f1, we see a completely different kind of fight. My guess is, however, that there should be something with knight f1. I mean, there is something with knight f1 by h3i, and Magnus goes g6. Yeah. So Magnus immediately. Yes.
Magnus goes g6, Peter, with the first question that I have to ask you, which I think must come to all our minds, that why not take on f3 at the moment when white actually has to capture with the pawn, perhaps destroying the structure, because if you capture with the queen, the d4 pawn falls. So why would black not take on f3 at that moment?
Yeah, because I believe that Magnus knows exactly that he can take whenever he wants, at least yet, because now that the move knight g3 is on the board, white is probably threatening to play the move bishop e3, protecting the d4 pawn, because e4 pawn is protected by the knight and the bishop. Before knight g3, white had no time to play bishop e3, and we see it happen. So Magnus decided not to go for this bishop takes f3, g takes f3 structure. Let me little bit explain the structure itself. Usually when you double the pawns, if black gets grip on the f4 square, then it's all perfect. But white seems to be in time to play the move knight g3, taking h5 square under control, and it's not really clear how black gonna put pressure on white's center, because once I go, for example, you go g6, I go knight g3, you play the move bishop g7, I might play the move f3, f4, and you see that suddenly I have very nice grip on the center. I will then develop with bishop e3, and it's gonna be tough. I have the center, I have the control. Magnus decided not to give up his bishop yet. On the other hand, he also needs to compensate because white got the center.
Very interesting, Peter, that, you know, visually it looks like you're destroying white's kingside pawn structure, but actually white gets a lot of dynamics in that position and can advance those pawns, which can actually work in white's favor. So Magnus decides not to do that. Now that he's gone bishop e3, one of the thematic ideas that I feel that I know about these positions, Peter, and I'm not sure if it works in this particular moment, but is the idea to go knight a5, threatening to jump into c4, and if white goes b3 to stop that, to try and hit with c5. Because that bishop on g7 is definitely one that I want to do everything for to open it up. Is this something that could be a possibility here?
Yeah, it's a very logical reaction, only it feels a bit slow to me. I mean, usually it should come with a more devastating effect. On the other hand, the big question is, what else can Magnus do? Because this is a typical position, okay, give white one more move and he's gonna play the move queen d2. He doesn't care about bishop takes f3, gf3, especially because then the knight on c6 is doomed and also the knight on f6 is doomed. Black would have loved to go knight h5, which is now controlled by the knight on g3, and the move like knight a5 will be impossible after queen d2. So it's absolutely correct what you are saying, that Black should try to use his dynamics immediately. Another typical reaction often in this type of position is to play the move d5. However, here it simply doesn't work because the knight is already on g3. So after d5, white can simply play e5. And the only justification to do that with Black would be to jump into e4, but this is now not possible. So something connected with c5 is the way to go.
I think c5 is just a very thematic idea because you need to get rid of this c7, d6 structure. And I think this is also what Sam mentioned, that, you know, if you've got a knight on c6 and the pawn is backward on c7, you want to try and push it to c5. A move like knight a5 provokes the opening up of the h8, a1 diagonal because white must go b3 to stop it. Magnus decides not to do that and he's gone for knight d7, not a move we were expecting, Peter.
Yeah, not at all. On the other hand, it seems like Jan has expected it because he blitzed out the move rook c1. Knight d7 makes a lot of sense. The knight on f6 was kind of misplaced because it was not doing anything anymore after white protected the e4 pawn. And as you also said, Black wants to open up the bishop on g7. Black has to put pressure on d4. That's why Magnus decided to keep his knight on c6 for the moment. And the move rook c1 was answered by bishop takes f3 and white was forced to take gf3. Now the big question is, can Black try to put one more pressure on the d4 pawn? One thing that comes to mind, the ugly looking move queen f6, which would never really work if white gets the chance to play f4, because then white will be able to answer it with e5. So something like queen f6 might be a move to target the d4 pawn and say that please advance it. Yeah, because if you advance it, then you weaken all the dark squares. I mean, Black knight can jump to e5 to d4. It's definitely not what white wants. You cannot protect the pawn on d4 because then the pawn on f3 is hanging. So I believe Jan has foreseen that he will move the bishop somewhere and hit the c7 pawn. I don't know exactly. For example, bishop b3, knight takes d4. Let's just illustrate this. That if we change everything, where does this lead? Takes, rook takes c7. It looks quite nice for white, but Black plays the move knight e5 and hits f3 with the tempo, and I believe this solves all of Black's problems here.
Very interesting position indeed. And I think, Peter, while Magnus thinks what he wants to do here, I think queen f6 is definitely the move we're expecting on the board. It feels very logical in continuation with the idea of bishop f3. Let's quickly jump to the Wesley-Hikaru game because this also looks very combative. Black has just made the move bishop f6 and we see a similar structure with the pawn on c7, knight on c6. Let's try and have that up, Peter. Just looking at it, and I also see the engine bar, the evaluation bar confirming it, but I was going to say that it looks very pleasant for white with that weakness on e6.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if white gets a chance to break Black's structure with h5, then Black's position might collapse. So it's very important for Black to get ready to counter it by hitting the d4 pawn somehow. And Wesley has played the move. Yeah, h5 on the board. One of the problems for Black is that in order to pressure this d4 pawn, it would be nice to play the move rook d8. But it runs into the simple tactics of rook takes e6 because queen takes e6 would be met by bishop b3, pinning and winning the queen. So no way to put extra pressure on the d4 pawn, and this means that Hikaru will have to react to h5. How are you going to react? With a move like g5 or with g takes h5? G takes h5 on the board, queen d3 blitzed out, threatening rook g4 checkmate. So black has to watch out now.
Oh, let's just illustrate that with maybe a move like knight b4, Peter, this beautiful idea that you were talking about. And here, the killing rook g4, you take, and queen h7 would be made. Hikaru is not going to fall for this, but a cute little trick here that he has to be careful about.
Yeah, and it's not just a trick, it's a very important tempo, yeah, because thanks to this threat of rook g4, black has to react. I don't know exactly, I mean, it seems
Because
logical that...
Peter, a move like king h8 runs into rook e6.
Yeah.
So just everywhere there's this very strong threat of mate on h7.
And rook e7 then, that means runs into rook takes e6.
Still, because queen e6, you have bishop b3 pinning and winning. And after rook e6, black again loses control of the defense on h7 and it runs into mate. Rook f7 played, keeping things under control.
Yeah, and the move a3, just a little move a3, very important to take away the chance of black going knight b4, those stabilizing the structure. And if white gets another move, rook a1 in, bringing all his pieces to the attack, it's gonna be, in long terms, it's gonna be very, very tough for black. So Hikaru needs to act, but not so easy, because what to do? Maybe now is the time to play rook d8. Is that something that black could try? Because now rook e6 trick does not work anymore thanks to the rook on f7. So the rook on f7 actually does a multi-purpose job of protecting the h7 pawn and indirectly stopping also this rook takes e6 idea. Trying to hit somehow the d4 pawn. Okay, big question. First of all, white can also simply protect with rook d1. Another question would be, can white go all in with a move like rook a1? But I have the feeling that probably that's too early. For example, knight takes d4, bishop takes d4, and white is not able to capitalize. Finally, black gets his counterplay. That's what black needs, a bishop on d4 hitting the f2 pawn. So Wesley has to take it slow, in my opinion, and after rook d8, just play a move like rook d1, stabilizing and claim that, okay, please make another move.
I think you're absolutely on point with a move like rook d1, because now that the rook has moved to d8, white simply protects the pawn on d4 and perhaps wants to even play a move like bishop b3 next, hitting the pawn on e6.
Exactly, and it's gonna be, I mean, it looks very primitive, but it's gonna be very, very tough to protect that pawn. Let's just imagine black plays a move like king h8, which is useful getting out of this diagonal, but for example, bishop b3, rook e7, and then a little move like queen e3, putting more pressure on the e6 pawn. It's gonna be very tough to defend. And Hikaru goes king h8 immediately. But I don't know. I mean, for example, now can white play the move rook e1, and how are you gonna, because now you are never in time to sidestep. On the other hand, maybe Hikaru felt like he anyway has no right to move the rook from e8 because the e6 pawn is hanging. Big question.
Does look like Hikaru is in big trouble here, actually. I don't like his position at all. It's not just about the evaluation bar, but it's very hard to find any counter ideas for Hikaru to create his play in this position.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one idea, desperate idea, would be something to try to get e6, e5 break going. However, then white can answer it with d5, and you can never play knight d4 because your rook is pinned. So that's another problem. Okay, e5, one could argue that it's anyway a terrible move. I'm just saying that, yeah, even this scenario is not really working. Let Hikaru and Wesley maybe think about this position, because I believe they will take it a bit slow. And let's just jump back to Magnus's game, because there had been some development. And after queen f6 had been played, yeah, and Jan played the move bishop b3, knight takes d4, bishop d4, queen d4, and of course white captured on c7 first. There was no reason to take the queen and let black activate his bishop. So the move rook a7 was played. Rook takes a7, queen takes a7, queen takes d6, white grabbed the pawn. It's not just the pawn, but the potential that once this pawn on d6 is eliminated, white can go for f4, e5, which would be very nice, closing down the bishop, giving access later to knight e4, knight d6, which, if it comes, would end the game. Of course, it's black to move, and black has lot of nice positional compensation now for the pawn. And Magnus even says, no, I want my pawn back. He takes on b2, and Jan goes f4 immediately. What is your take, Tanya, in this position? Which position do you like, whites or blacks?
Very difficult to say. I was just thinking how black can continue here after f4, because again, looking at the evaluation bar, it shows that it's fine for both sides, but it's the kind of position that any result is possible. And to say it's equal would make no sense at all. I think if I have to pick, I would pick white. I do like this bishop on b3 that's hitting the f7 pawn. I like the piece activity. But I'm just thinking, can black here play bishop d4 and create the same threats against my f2 pawn? And how would white react to a move like that? But if I had to pick a color, I would pick white here, Peter. What about you?
Yeah, I also have similar feelings, but this position is very much move per move. The big question is, it looks nice to play the move bishop d4, but then I simply protect it with rook e2. And now the big question is, how do you react? Because whenever you try to activate your knight, then the bishop might be hanging. And one thing that I felt, and you also mentioned that you love this bishop on b3. If you love this bishop, and I love it as well, it kind of disturbs me if black attacks it with a move like knight c5 and it's on the board. Magnus has played knight c5. Jan says, I insist on my bishop. He goes bishop d5, but now I see a lot of dynamic possibilities for black, because suddenly the knight can jump to d3, hitting f2, also the f4 pawns later. This is getting out of control now.
I actually really like this process of thinking that you just described, Peter, that, you feel that white's most dangerous trump in the position is the bishop on b3. So Magnus immediately wants to hit it with a move like knight c5, bringing the knight to a better square. And this way of thinking, instead of trying to go for a direct one move threat like bishop d4, which can easily be countered by rook e2, just is the right approach in the position. And of course, white knows the big trump is the bishop, so decides to keep it with bishop d5. And now it gets very messy. Let's take a look at, Peter, what happens if, can black actually play knight d3 here directly? Because bishop f7 doesn't matter, because you just simply take with the queen and the f4 pawn hangs in the end.
Yeah, maybe, but that's exactly the point. Black has to decide that and understand which exchanges are fine for him. Because, there is bishop f7. It, however, seems to be fine for black. No, you cannot
Queen
take on
b3
f4.
check. Queen b3 check.
b3 check, yeah, exactly. That's the decisive check. So it means that black is probably not able to play the move knight d3, or if knight d3 takes, queen d3, then you kind of have to take on a2, which is ugly. I mean, you don't want to play like this, then white gonna play the move e5. And if he activates the knight with knight e4, then it might be very, very dangerous for black. So no need to fall into this trick. But on the other hand, if you don't have knight d3 immediately, then white has some, you have the move queen e7. Maybe you can play the move queen e7.
But Peter, can we just go back to that position with queen a2 that you had on the board after this line? So we were looking at knight d3, hitting the rook, the possibility of bishop f7, queen f7, queen d3, and now queen a2. And queen f4 doesn't work because of queen b3, and you mentioned queen a2 here. Now, it was so simple for you to play this move e5 and just move on like it's obvious. And I think it's really interesting just how strong this move is, because if we see this position with the pawn on e4, we don't really realize how well white is doing. But the moment you cut off that bishop on b2 and create this e4 square, and this is what always blows my mind, that how these moves come so easily to players of the top level, and you're able to spot them so quickly.
Well, I mean, it's not that difficult, because you are trying, I mean, your brains try to give you arguments why you should or why you shouldn't be doing something. And if you can simply collect the queenside pawns, then it's very logical. And here the line, of course, continues, because black has the move queen c4. That's the only critical move. then probably white has to go for queen d7. I have to keep the tempo. If not, the rook sidesteps, then again I have time to bring my knight, so rook f8 is not critical. In this regard, a move like queen e6 is again very important because it's a tempo. I cannot afford to change the queen, so I have to come back to d2, hitting the bishop again with the tempo. Then you go to bishop a3. I bring the knight to e4, and you bring your bishop back to e7, and black might be simply better. So after all these lines, people always ask how long you are calculating forward. It depends on the position, because when you finally feel that, okay, all the forced moves have finished, then you are able to kind of just concentrate on evaluating the resulting position, and then you can judge it.
Well, incredible, but none of this happened, Peter, because I think Magnus did feel that knight d3 perhaps is too dangerous, and instead made the move bishop d4, a move that we have been discussing, so that black too is able to put a counter threat on the f2 pawn. Now bishop f2 is a real threat on the board, because after king f2 you have knight d3 check, and that could be very bad for white. First thing that comes to mind is, can white look at bishop f7 now? I'm thinking queen f7, queen d4, knight e6, and knight f4 looks like black should be well here.
Exactly, it looks that black is doing perfectly fine. The position is very, very complicated, very sharp, very interesting. However, I think there are some incredible actions happening in the Wesley Hikaru Nakamura game. So let's first jump back there, because look at this, it doesn't look like a strategical struggle. It's all about, can black survive or not, because white's attack is just too furious.
I hate black's position here, Peter. I mean, what are you doing after knight g5, for example?
I don't know. I mean, first let us even just see how did this happen. So Wesley played the move queen e3. He moved out of this pin, and after queen f8, he played the move d4, d5, breaking black's structure. I mean, this move queen f8 was also like a panic move. But I mean, we already discussed, black's problem is he doesn't have a move, because this little move a3 stopped all kinds of natural knight b4, knight d5 regrouping. That's black's problem. So queen f8 is maybe not a successful move, but I don't believe black had anything. Not much else. d5, knight d8, d takes e6. That's how Wesley broke the structure and got this powerful e6 pawn, bringing now his rook to d1, knight b7, your knight g5, Tanya, on the board, and let's see how Hikaru will try to handle this.
I mean, this looks absolutely crushing. There's knight f7 coming in. It's and I have to say that so far, so he plays knight d6 to try and stop that, and I'm so tempted to even look at just rook d6 here, but perhaps not required.
Yeah, good question. I mean, this is the position when you feel that you have everything under control. If you see that you have an easy way without sacrificing, then you don't look for it. If you feel that, let me look at it, and I have the feeling that it's gonna win by force, then you calculate the lines. I mean, let's just take a look, because it's so tempting to play a move like knight f4. I really don't want to give black the chance after knight f7 to capture on f7, ef7, rook e4, queen e4 to play this position. However, there is some idea of bringing the queen to g8. Yeah. So you will have to protect with bishop g7 and sit tight.
But bishop d7 runs into bishop c2, and that's just game over. I mean, this might be opposite color bishop, but Peter, it looks lost for black.
Yeah, definitely. In any case, rook takes d6 on the board, but white also has this move rook f4, which is very, very tempting after the exchange sacrifice. So very interesting which move Wesley will choose. I mean, because imagine rook f4, where do you put the queen? And next knight f7 also looks crushing.
Looks very crushing. I mean, I don't think black has too many options with the queen, because I think queen g8 just runs into knight f7 and queen g3. Let's have that on the board. If you go queen g8 here, black could go knight f7, and a move like king g7 actually just runs into mate with rook g4 and queen h6.
Yeah, no, okay, of course, queen g8 is helping. You have to go queen g7 probably, because you have to try to give your chance to bring the king to g8. But Vasily has played the move knight f7, and I'm not completely sure, because it looks very, very good. It's very tempting, but I have seen already Nakamura escaping completely lost positions exactly the way like this. I'm a little bit surprised by Vasily's choice.
Very, very interesting. Okay, let's try and defend this for black then. Peter, you mentioned he's traded the rooks, and now what's black's next move here? Bishop f6 immediately played, so bishop c2 is still met by queen f7, so you can't play that immediately. Also, white's idea is to give a queen g8 check, but currently it's not possible for white to place the queen on the g file. So I'm thinking about a move like queen f5 here.
Yeah, queen f5 is very, very natural. I don't know exactly how Hikaru wants to deal with this. It's quite an unpleasant task to find the move.
Queen g7.
But queen e7, maybe queen e7. That's his idea.
Queen c8. Queen c8.
Queen c8. Yeah, I wanted to get queen e1 check. So the queen cannot move.
The queen cannot move anywhere, and he's gone king g7 and queen f5, king g7 on the board.
Yeah, I mean, he has to go king g7, but now his bishop cannot get back to g7, so Vasily can simply capture the pawn on h5, and queen c8. This is the setup. So he wants to take control of the c4 square with the queen. He's trying some queen c1 check counterattack, and stopping some bishop c2. Of course, white played the move g3, gets nice shelter for his king. The position still looks awful for black. There is this trick. Look at this. Queen c1 check, king g2, queen g5 is met by f8 queen, check, king takes f8, queen f7, checkmate.
That's such an amazing line, Peter. It's just, and moves like a3 and g3 played by Vasily so quickly just show the highest class of chess, because these are just simple, quiet moves that keep all the threats in the position, but actually make it even more dangerous.
Yeah, and those are also the moves that basically top players like to play a tempo, because if you feel that you cannot do anything concretely, then you want to improve your position, and you immediately felt the only problem is my king. I have to give a light square possibility, and I need this g2 square for my king, because imagine I put bishop on d5 and the king on g2. There is simply no way black can give any checks. And if you cannot give any check, then okay, how are you going to survive long terms? Hikaru goes for the move h6, weakening the g6 square, but there was simply nothing better. Again, this looks lost.
Peter, we should come back. We should perhaps come back and stay.
Exactly.
But do you want to just quickly jump over? Yeah, because what is happening here? I see a king on f4. Last time we checked, there was a pawn on f4.
Yeah, the position is completely crazy. Let us just quickly understand what happened. So after bishop d4, there was a move, rook e2, knight d3. And Magnus, by the way, down to 48 seconds on the clock. I haven't really seen Magnus in such a big time trouble. Look at this, knight takes f4, king f3, rook d8. Was this really planned and calculated? That's unbelievable. Rook d6. Because I still I see the king on f4, but still find it a little bit hard to understand what is exactly happening here.
I have no idea. So white has to go queen e8 or queen c8. He's gone for queen e8, and I saw a big drop in the evaluation bar and another big jump. What's going on? It's crazy.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. I mean, this is playing this completely crazy position with 50 seconds on the clock as Magnus has. It's very, very tough. You basically have no time to realize what is really happening. So you just make the move that comes to your mind, and you cannot really understand, is rook f6 check good or bad? You first want to take on f2 or not, and Jan is now running with his king to g4. So Jan keeps the pressure on Magnus. He doesn't want to give him the chance to think in his own time. So he's blitzing the moves. Rook f6 on the board.
And the world champion down to 45 seconds. If White's king is able to run to safety, then it's just game over because he's got an extra piece. And look at this. Jan has 6 minutes on his clock.
Yeah, but still, I mean, all the pieces are so strange. Black also has some ideas like invading with the queen to e3, something which would be very natural from White's side to simply pin the rook with queen e5, but that runs into some queen d7 check, and then White's king is in dire straits. He will not get time to get back to safety. So complete madness, and only 45 seconds to end. And Jan goes e5, h5, check, king h3, rook f4. What is going on? Now it does feel like White is in time to coordinate, and it was so nice to push this e4, e5, because suddenly the bishop on d5 is not only attacking f7, but it controls backwards all the light squares, giving stability for White's king. Magnus may be in big trouble here.
E6, I really like this move. White's king, there are no checks, and now White creates his own chances. I think this could be Jan's comeback game.
Yeah, it looks like it. I mean, first of all, as you said, there are no immediate checks, and White is now also stepping e takes f7 and then queen g8 checkmate himself. So Black has no time to enter, for example, like queen e3, because queen e3, if I'm not blundering anything, brings nothing, because then White just captures and you just win the game with queen g8 check. So Magnus takes the pawn on e6, but this opens up the diagonal and weakens Black's king further. I would say that this is hopeless. Bishop e6 opening the d file. Now bishop d4 had to retreat. Okay, if this is not checkmate, knight takes h5, probably is checkmate, but...
So knight h5, gh5, let's see that line, Peter. Rook g2.
Yeah, and if this is not checkmate, then nothing, right? I mean, you have to go to f6. Yeah, and Jan played the move knight takes h5, so we're gonna see this pretty soon on our board. Takes. So king f6 is kind of forced, but this is just mate in 2, yeah? Because rook g6 check, and then move the bishop and it checkmate. And yeah,
that's it. Rook g6 on the board, king e5, bishop b3. It's game over. That's checkmate.
Yeah, Magnus resigned. Incredible. What a comeback by Jan. Yeah, brilliant performance.
Absolutely incredible. And in what style, Peter? First game of the day, Jan Nepomniachtchi not taking time to get back to the game. We'll talk more about that, Peter, but we've got action on the other semi-final match. So let's go to that, because that looks like Hikaru perhaps will not get as lucky as Jan. Well, I say lucky. Jan played a brilliant game there.
Yeah, and we see similarities, because there also we saw opposite colored bishops. White had a light squared bishop, Black has a dark squared bishop. Look at this king on g6, very weak. The only chance Black has that there are no heavy pieces and there are no knights anymore. So the chances of eventually hanging on are still there compared to Jan's position, where it was just devastating immediately.
And it's so important to get a reasonable result in game one, because both Jan and Hikaru are playing catch up. They have to win their match to take it to playoffs. A draw would be enough to take Wesley and Magnus into the finals. Jan has done it in game one, and in absolutely Jan style, mating the world champions king in the center of the board. What a crazy game that was, Peter, where Jan's king itself found himself on f4, but then found his way back to safety.
Yeah, it was incredible. I mean, if we have time, then later we will analyze it, take a closer look, because there was such a mess, and I believe there was a reason why Magnus went so low on the clock. He was probably little bit tricked by the position, that it felt like it's principle to go for this pin sacrifice, which might have been objectively correct, but with such a little time, he couldn't find the the very precise computer continuation, which maybe with a little bit more time on the clock he would have found. In any case, a brilliant victory for Jan. And now Magnus, this is what we talked about yesterday, that I want to see Magnus lose a game in order that we see the best Magnus coming out. And that's what I'm hoping for.
So what Peter did speak to us about yesterday was that the world champion, really, the best comes out in him, and we see him in absolutely beast mode when his back is against the wall, when he knows he's playing a very tough and very in-form opponent. I think the saying, the tough gets, you know the one I'm talking about, holds true for nobody more than Magnus Carlsen. And it will be interesting to see if Magnus is able to equalize this set. King h6 on the board, Peter. How is Wesley just goes on to pick up the pawns. He doesn't care about black's king or finding play against that. But h4 on the board now.
The point is capturing the pawn is that simply not any kind of queen exchange is completely winning for white. So Wesley wants to make sure that he doesn't have to mate his opponent, because thanks to black's dark square fortress, it's not easy to give the checkmate. He collected all the pawns. Now let me finally exchange the queens and game is over.
And that's actually a really good strategy as well. You know, just you don't need to look for a checkmate. If you're winning, you just simply try and find a simple solution, trade off the queens. The a5 pawn is good enough. But of course, Hikaru is going to do everything to not allow that. Firstly, he's taken control of the a1 h8 diagonal. And look at Wesley just calmly picking up all the pawns.
Yeah, and Wesley can claim that, sorry, but I'm 3 pawns up and I have the better position. What else do I need to win the game? I mean, it's perfectly understandable. Yeah, Hikaru plays bishop e7. Now Wesley gonna go queen c4, bring the queen back to the 4th rank, and I assume it's game over. And this is also exactly the scenario that you remember I mentioned when we talked about the first comebacks in the quarterfinals, that I believe when you are trailing the match, it's much better to have the white pieces in the very first game, because you are coming in an aggressive mood, and if you are coming in an aggressive mood, it's much better to have the white pieces. And we see queen c4, bishop takes h4. Hikaru tries his only chance to mess things up for Wesley, because queen takes h4 would run into queen takes d5. Oops, this is already out to update. But what I wanted to show, that if white picks up the bishop on h4, then black takes queen d5, and it's check, and the f7 pawn is lost. So Wesley makes sure that this is not gonna happen.
And Hikaru really fighting it out, playing those moves really fast, and keeps the game going. But this a pawn looks unstoppable, Peter. We've got a check on g5, but just after king f1, there are no more checks. And yeah, I don't see a way for black to come to find a way to fight against this a pawn anymore.
Yeah, exactly. There are simply too many problems, because the f7 pawn is threatening to queen. You have to keep an eye on the bishop on f4. Hikaru goes queen f5 in order to try to threaten with queen g6, and if white plays king f1, then queen b1 check. Use this diagonal. I believe that Wesley just have to be very, very little careful, and that's more than enough, because it's just impossible not to win this position on this level.
Okay, so let's just see if after he's gone queen e4 taking.
Wow, but he blundered perpetual.
Oh
wow.
my! And look at Wesley, and Hikaru is also, he can't believe it either. Wesley simply misses queen g4 check, and now he's got a perpetual on the board. Both players in absolute shock.
Yeah, of course, because now Hikaru is back in the match. Incredible turnaround.
Peter, you said it. Hikaru has 1,000 lives.
Yeah, and I also said that it's impossible not to win it. There you go. I mean, I feel that it was first my fault, because if I would have not said that, it would have never happened like this.
We're going to take a look at that, but first let's take a look at our scoreboard. Jan Nepomniachtchi scores a very important win at the very start of set 2 in crushing style. Magnus Carlsen has to win, otherwise it goes into a playoff. And Hikaru Nakamura surviving And how? Joining us just in time to talk about all the drama that's happened, we've got Grandmaster Hari with us. Hari, can you hear us?
Hi, yeah, I can hear you. Hi, Peter. Hi, Tanya. Hi, everyone.
Yeah, hi, Hari. Nice to have you.
Yeah, I was just watching this game between Hikaru and So Wesley, and just when Peter said it is completely winning, and then Wesley missed Queen E4. It's incredible. But on the other hand, I can imagine, it's shorter time control, and players could be tired. It's possible to blunder this way. But yeah, I mean, this Queen G4, Queen D1 is just too much.
Hari, Peter, can we just perhaps go through these last 2-3 moves and show everybody what really happened here? This position.
Yeah, this was the position when I kind of felt like, just give this little check Queen G4, which forces black back to Bishop G5. Now you can simply play the move. I mean, you can simply play. I know if Queen E4 you can capture, okay, then
probably Queen E6 is winning, no?
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, everything is winning. I just should not blunder. Yeah, that's the only thing. Yeah.
Because the point is F8 Queen and Queen F7 checkmate. So I mean, black has to capture the queen, and then okay, with these 2 pawns, I mean, A pawn and F pawn, black cannot protect. And also D6 pawn is kind of stopping, some of the activity of the bishop. So this should be just winning.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, incredible, because suddenly, it was very funny that after A5, Queen F5, let me just go there. Yeah, Bishop F4, A5, Queen F5. All of a sudden, it's pretty sure that white is completely winning, but this little nasty threat of Queen G6 is already something that disturbs you as a player. And then Wesley just wanted to make sure that this Queen G6 will not happen. Played the move Queen E4 and blundered into Queen G4, which is much, much worse.
Is Bishop E6 winning here, or is there some simple win here? I don't know.
So Bishop E6, Queen G6 is not possible because of Queen G4.
Yeah, so, I just want.
Yeah, let's just show that, Peter, that Queen G6 or Queen G5 runs into Queen G4, so you can't give it check.
I mean, you can play, but with A pawn and F pawn, it should be winning for white, I believe. I mean,
yeah, especially because you cannot take on F7 because of A6. Yeah. Yeah, so just Bishop E6 and it's game over.
And also after Queen E6, Queen F4.
Queen E6, Queen F4, and yeah.
Maybe it's not that easy, yeah?
Yeah.
Because suddenly Queen D5 check is threatened. Of course, it's very bad and so on. But
Queen G6 and Queen D3 and lot of checks. Yes.
Lot of checks.
Incredible.
But okay, there should be many ways for white to win this position. So let's not be harsh on white.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, okay, everything was winning.
Yeah.
I believe that already the move G takes H4 showed way too much confidence because it felt like Wesley thought everything completely wins. I did not understand G takes H4 because it was very simple just to come back with the queen to C4, let black take on G3, then you take F take G3. And with this structure, you never ever run into any kind of trick.
Yeah. Yeah, Queen C4 is pretty simple, controlling the E2 square, and sometimes even Queen G4 check, and yeah, it's just winning here for white.
Yeah, I believe that Wesley missed this Bishop takes H4. That was the first big blow to him, because I believe that when he decided to capture on H4, and we saw that he still had like 2.5 minutes. So this is no real time trouble for this position. I assume that he simply felt that after G takes H4, Bishop E7, Queen C4, black is gonna resign. And once Bishop takes H4 continued the game, it was kind of the first psychological setback.
Yeah,
maybe that's an argument.
I just cannot believe, Peter, this save by Hikaru it's just amazing. And it reminds me of what Erwin was saying, the amount of positions that Hikaru saves simply with his resourcefulness. But here he definitely got very lucky. Hari, can you also give us your take on the other crazy game one we had between Magnus and Jan? Because that was no less epic than what we just saw.
Yeah. Well, I saw the winning move as I was scrolling. I saw the computer winning move, so I will just tell it where it was winning for black. I believe it was move number 20. I don't know, somewhere rook d6 was played. So I don't know which move number it was. Yeah, after queen e8, queen c7 is winning. And that's not something which I would find, as after king g4, the idea is to just play rook d8, not threatening to mate. And after queen moves to c6, queen c6, bishop c6, and rook d2.
Wow, this is beautiful.
Yeah, because it says, I mean, it doesn't, I mean, it doesn't seem logical, but once you see rook d8, it makes sense. So. Yeah, this is winning for black.
And queen e5 doesn't help because you've got rook. Why?
Rook f6 check. Rook f6 check.
Knight f5.
Rook f5 and bishop d6.
Oh, this is incredible.
Oh, sorry. No. No. Queen e5 f6.
Rook f5 is not possible. So
yeah.
Yes. I was trying like 3 times to make the move rook takes f5, but his computer was not agreeing, you know.
No, after queen e5, it's just f6.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And wherever queen goes, rook d5 check, and yeah, it's so.
Yeah, but such moves, as Hari also mentioned, to find queen c7, because it's so illogical. It looks like you sacrifice the piece in order to hunt white's king. And all of a sudden it works because of the hanging rook on d2 due to this pin. And it would mean that white had to play the move queen c8.
Yes, exactly, queen c8. But okay, this queen c7 move doesn't make sense when you are just going after white's king. And okay, it could be nice tactic puzzle in some book or course. But yeah, it's but a nice victory by Jan. You know, it's good if he fights back. As Peter was mentioning, we can see very good chess from Magnus and not suffering every game and holding.
Exactly, yeah. This is what I'm hoping for. Yeah, we should see how Magnus plays, and whenever we see that the scoreboard is equal, then Magnus is a different person. Magnus, forget about holding, struggling, so on. We want to see the real Magnus Carlsen. Show it to us.
So, okay, e4.
Is this what you guys were talking about?
I would like to mention that Johann Sebastian Christiansen made a course on Chessable just a couple of days, or probably a week or 2 weeks ago. And there was a tweet of Magnus Carlsen that if someone can play against me, this Alpine defense, and so I don't know why he's playing.
Yeah, this is not exactly what I was hoping for. When I saw the moves e4, c5, in my dreams I already saw some very, very sharp, exciting Najdorfs, and all of a sudden we see this Alapin, which.
But I think
I don't want to say that it is quite draw. It has a drawish reputation, because definitely if Magnus plays it, he has something in mind. But I'm very curious to see what it is.
Yeah, I mean, there were some very interesting ideas in this course. I do not know exactly which direction it was recommended. So maybe I don't know if he's following the course. It will be interesting to know after the match.
Well, definitely they are teammates, yeah, because I believe he is very good friends with Magnus.
Yeah.
And there we go, a4. This is something that I haven't really seen.
Yeah, d4 is the usual way, right? d4, c takes d4, knight d4, knight d4, queen d4, rook d8. I remember this as the main theory or something like that.
Yeah, but that was something like when White was not really fighting for advantage, right?
Yeah. But okay, I might be wrong. There could be some improvements here for White, but a4 is new for me.
Yeah.
Not just for you, because Jan has gone into a think, so clearly it's something that he hasn't seen before either.
I told you if he's thinking, it's not good sign.
Also, there is this argument, that I know that Johann Sebastian is a very, very good theoretician, and he likes all those sidelines. And he likes to find new ideas in lines which other people don't analyze. So in this regard that you mentioned that he just finished the course, then I'm pretty sure that he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
And it's funny, Hari, that you mentioned that Jan thinking is not a good sign, and him playing intuitively and fast is when Jan is at his best. Because Peter, if you remember yesterday, he took some time for that move Queen B8, a good number of minutes, and it turned out to be an immediate blunder.
Okay,
Yeah,
that might be a coincidence, but I have seen I remember some of the games which are quite complicated, and he would make moves so quick. I mean, any player would wait for a minute or two just to recheck the variations, but he would just move after move and very confident. But whenever he starts to think, I feel that he missed some move or he's not sure. So that's why I say when he's thinking, he's not really confident.
And the players are blitzing out. So what's going on here after Queen G4?
Well, I believe it's Magnus who is blitzing things out. Look at his clock. He has 17 minutes, 7 seconds on his clock. Jan, by his own standards, 14 minutes, 35 seconds doesn't mean that he was blitzing things out. And it already shows that Magnus spies things up. And this is the new twist. I mean, this white pawn on a6 changes a lot in this type of positions, because in long terms, white has a very powerful b5 square for his knight. So ever this knight lands on b5, then any kind of endgame might be just lost for black, because the pawn on a7 will be very, very unpleasant to defend, almost impossible. So there are a lot of long-term gains, plus it's not so easy to develop. It's understandable that Jan wants to deal with this queen on g4 and attacks it with h5, which will, however, mean that probably Jan will not castle short as well.
So probably Jan will get his pawn to h3, no? h4, h3, and white has pawn on a6. This is the latest trend after Alpha 0. So once you place your pawn on a6 or h6, you kind of feel that you are just having good position, in almost every variation. But in this particular position, as Peter mentioned, when white's knight can reach to b5, of course, it will require some preparation. I don't know, c4 and knight c3, but white is better, I believe, and white has an easy play here. So something like queen e2 can be played.
And queen e2 on the board?
Queen e2 on the board, yeah. This is one of the things, that I start to dislike a little bit in modern chess, that even openings like the Alapin can be really dangerous. And it requires, it forces the players to work more and more and more, because it's not just the forced position in the Najdov that you have to take care. All the sidelines are growing. They are growing, and you have to study all the time.
Well, the pawn advancement of a pawn or h pawn changes the whole dynamics of many openings. I mean, probably before Alpha 0, you might think in some openings to push the pawn, to all the way to a6 or a7 is not considered to be good. I remember many Russian coaches would strictly say don't push the pawn unless it's necessary. But nowadays you can safely, you can play h4, h5 in almost any opening. So it's much more work, but it's a changing trend.
Yeah,
Black's
I like the
decided-
move. Sorry, Tanya, I just want to say I like the move b6, b5 a lot because it's strategically absolutely correct. I don't know if exactly it's gonna work or not, but this is exactly Jan, that he kind of after 5 seconds played the move b6, b5. This is the Jan we know. He plays with a lot of confidence. Whatever happens, we're gonna see a very big fight, and we also see the other game by Hikaru and Wesley has started.
Didn't they have a similar game? I mean, in this kind of opening after bishop b3, knight b3 or something? Yes,
No,
yesterday?
that was actually bishop b4 yesterday, and after knight f3, d6. Yes, you're absolutely right. Knight a5 happened, but it happened in this position.
Right. The black's bishop was out. Okay, yeah, right. Okay. Wow, rook a3.
Can you explain this move, rook a3?
No, it was knight a3, bishop a3, rook a3.
Oh, he just traded, yeah, okay. Also, I want to ask you that in such a situation, if black was to go h4, a move that we've been discussing, should white react with h3 to stop this, or just not care about this?
Certainly h3. Two reasons. One, white has dark square bishop, so most likely he will pick the h4 pawn at some point, and also if black gets the pawn to h3, somewhere queen g2 checkmate is dangerous. So yeah, after h4, h3, you don't have to think.
Right. So that's the way to react with a move like h4, and why it's not so dangerous, and perhaps why Jan has decided not to play it. So trade off on a3. But the first thing that comes to mind is, where is black's king going?
Yeah, exactly. This is the main problem for black. I think both c8 and g8 are bad for black. So probably for a while it is better to stay on e8.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think important to mention why it was so important for white to provoke h5. Let's just imagine that the pawn could go back to h7 and black makes a short castle. We would be saying that white's strategy is terrible and black is simply better. The knight dominates the bishop. But this one single element that the black pawn was kind of provoked to h5, it requires completely different handling of the position, and Jan plays the move f6, trying to put his king on f7.
That's an interesting way to complete the development. And also I'm thinking if Jan perhaps wants to make a move like queen, but he can't. He has to go king f7 next, and then to trade off the queens with a move like queen c4. But the e6 pawn needs to be defended now.
Yeah, after rook e1, black could just play king f7, so I guess it's okay. But still, I don't know how black is going to move this rook on h8. It's not that simple.
Yeah, because maybe in long terms, finally, you will have to play a move like g6, which you definitely don't want. It weakens the structure. On the other hand, I also don't want to push the pawn to h4. So yeah, something to worry about for black. On the other hand, if black would nothing to worry about, then we would say that black is just better. Because the plan that Tanya mentioned, if black ever gets this queen c4 in, then of course here the problem that e6 pawn is hanging. But if ever black gets this move, then white queen from e2 is forced to move. Then everything falls into to its desired place from black side. So white has to be very energetic in this position.
And also, Peter, that makes... Sorry, go on, Hari.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was thinking that perhaps that's the reason why black didn't play queen c4 before he went f6, because white would have the option to go queen e5 then.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, very good point, because then you cannot play f6, you cannot castle, because then the pawn on h5 is hanging, and how are you going to protect the pawn?
Yeah, probably a very ugly move like rook h7, but okay, it's just that.
Yeah. Yeah, and there is also the other option of somewhere castling long. You know, you might be laughing, both of you, and there was a moment when I didn't know, is long castle legal in this moment or not? Because
Yes.
White is controlling the b8 square, so it's kind of confusing, yeah?
Actually, I got confused in some Chess 960 event because the rules for the castling are quite tricky, and I wanted to castle, and my opponent said you can't castle because of some rule. It's quite funny.
Yeah.
Okay, so what? Let's try and find a line here after f6. We were looking at rook e1 to stop queen c4 ideas, king f7. How are we evaluating this, and how is white continuing now?
I think rook b3 is better than rook e1. Sorry to interrupt, but rook b3 is better with the idea rook b8. I have c4.
Oh, that's a nice trick.
So after king f7, the rook on b8 is protected. So I don't want to include the rook e1, king f7, which is in favor of black. So rook
And
b3.
after rook b3, you don't mind black picking up the a6 pawn for the b5 pawn?
Yeah, I have to accept this trade and take queen b5. I mean, I would like to play rook b5, but simply the problem is knight c7.
And very important that the knight from c7 protects the queen on a6, so no tricks with rook b8 and rook b3 on the board.
So I think after queen a6, probably Magnus will just take queen b5. I don't know if I'm missing
He's
something.
got knight c7, Hari keeping everything under control and now threatening to take on a6. Perhaps did not like that ending so much.
Yeah, the ending kind of looked sad because after eliminating the b5 pawn,
C4,
white has this
B3.
very unpleasant threat of kicking the knight away from d5, and it feels like black has so many weaknesses that only thanks to this powerful knight he's keeping things under control. And imagine what Magnus is capable of doing in such a position. So knight c7 is very, very understandable. Black tries to keep things together.
So he's threatening to take on a6 with the queen here, right?
Or maybe I even prefer just to play a move like king f7. I don't feel like I have time to take this pawn. Besides, I believe that this pawn is now already not running away.
Okay, I have a question. If for a move like bishop f4, trying to hit the knight, does black want to make a committal move like e5?
I believe he has to.
Yeah, no other way to keep the pawns defended.
And
Exactly,
then,
because here the tempo is very, very important. So it's not about what you want or not. You are kind of forced to do things. I wonder if somewhere some tricky move like c3, c4 will be or not will be in the position. That's something to keep an eye on because it brings certain new dynamics to the position.
I was actually thinking about that move, but I couldn't find anything after queen takes c4. And the problem is with the rook on b3. I mean, if my queen is not on e2, just rook c3 would win a piece probably. But here, if I move the queen, then knight would, exactly, knight d5, and now, I mean, black won't mind even sacrificing the h5 pawn and just to castle. So this should be fine for black. So yeah, if I take queen takes c4 from white instead of queen f3, then b takes c4, rook b7, knight a6 simply, knight a6 and okay.
Yeah, feels to be fine. I mean, lot of dynamics in the position. It's understandable. Magnus taking his time because he feels that this is his moment. I mean, in the next couple of 1-2 moves, he has to utilize of his initiative because just king f7, rook a8, and black brings his pieces, then it's gonna be too late. We have also seen Magnus blitzing out everything at the very beginning, but now already Jan Nepomniachtchi is ahead on the clock with 2 full minutes. Very interesting stuff.
What about a move like rook b4?
Yeah, that was the other possibility.
I want to play c4, so I am just defending the c4 pawn.
And after knight a6, you want to take with the rook?
Rook b5. Now my queen is not pinned, unlike in the previous variation, so I can afford to do this. Yes. Yeah, rook h5, nice threat. Since black still cannot castle, I mean, if king f7 or something, just c4 and to keep the pressure, bishop e3 next.
Yeah, not so easy. I have a move like queen c5 maybe, but okay, you just play bishop d2, you ignore it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, after rook b4 I have to watch out. I
Well,
have to watch out, yeah.
It's not like, I mean, if white doesn't play rook b4, I don't know how to improve. That's the reason why I thought he should go for this.
So what's the line after king f7 here?
Yeah, I would go c4, and since rook h b8 is not possible because of queen h5 check, so rook a b8.
Okay.
And rook b4 played.
Wow.
Okay, nice.
Hari, you need to be playing and not commenting with us.
Well, it depends if it is a good move or not. You know, I can comment and Magnus can play, but still, we will know if it is good or bad after a couple of moves. So, yeah, here I don't know, bishop e3 or bishop f4 to provoke e5, or just go bishop e3 with the idea of bishop a7. Yeah, and now rook d1. I was thinking. I mean, it is messy. It's not an easy position anyway.
Yeah, it's very, very messy. I believe that one move that white really needs is still a move like h2 h3 to cover the back rank, because whenever, for example, instead of queen c6, I also had this idea of just giving back the pawn. You can capture with queen h5 check, and then I go and suddenly you have some back rank issues. But Jan goes for queen takes a6. Magnus blitzes out rook h4 immediately.
Do you think
h5 pawn really is so important?
Do you think Jan would play ugly move like g6?
No, I don't believe.
But is it bad?
I don't know, but it's scary, no?
Yeah, but on the other hand, I have queen c6, knight d5, and you know, I mean, I don't like to play such positions from black, but given that we are here, so we have to find something. Yeah, queen f3, knight d5. Maybe just b3,
yeah.
c4.
But on the other hand, I also felt like, you know, I would really, now that I eliminated the a6 pawn, and if after rook takes h5, I'm sure that we're going to exchange one pair of rooks, then maybe I don't mind losing this pawn. So just even something like queen c6, rook takes h5, king f7 would be quite natural, and then get the knight back to d5 and have a very solid position.
I think black is doing quite okay here.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not liking Magnus's rook h4. It was blitzed out instantly. I feel like maybe there was something. Maybe there was something. Or at least if rook h4 was the best what white could do, then something didn't work out as planned.
And c4 is nothing here, right? Probably just b takes c4, or... Yeah, it should be... Yeah, it's nothing. Just b takes c4, rook c4, and short castle. I can't move the rook.
What about your idea, Hari, of just putting the rook on the d file with rook d1 now? And what is black's next move? Does he want to come back queen c6 or what?
I don't think so, because then it would give maybe rook b to b4 to d4 and some threats, and okay, after short castle, white would simply pick up h5 pawn, so that should be all good for white with all kinds of threats. I guess black would play maybe rook d8. It looks a bit strange.
After rook d1?
Yeah. But on the other hand, if black manages to exchange one pair of rooks, it's not that bad. And to have knight d5 if some rook d4 or something.
Such a strange position, but take a look at this. He went king f7 and like you said, takes the h5 pawn and knight d5. Black's doing fine here, no?
Yeah, black is doing fine, yeah.
Yeah, I also have the feeling that it's the first time that I feel myself secure from the black side, because once Magnus got his pawn to a6 and this queen g4 provoked the h5, I was not feeling happy from the black side because there was always too much dynamic involved, and now I don't see those dynamics anymore.
So, but black simply, I mean, black just doesn't move his rook on from h8, right? So you can just play queen c6, a5, a4 to to keep these pawns on b5 and a4.
Yeah, and maybe it's a good moment to jump back or jump over to Hikaru versus Wesley, because I do believe that Hikaru has a very, very nice position. And if he wins this game, then it's going to be very, very tough on Wesley. Then he will remember, of course, very much that he could have decided not the match, but I mean, he would have put himself in an incredibly good position by winning that first game. And Hikaru is feeling his chance.
Do you think Hikaru is going to take on d5?
I'm not sure about taking on d5. I just want to enjoy look at this position. I mean, white has a lovely knight on d4, lovely knight on f4. Black has an isolated pawn on d5. We have been talking about the advantage of two bishops. Well, this is definitely a position where the two bishops doesn't really matter much. White has the grip, white has the much better pawn structure. And look at this, Hikaru just says, I want to sit on this square. Let me return knight fe2, I want to develop my bishop and just squeeze you.
Yeah, bishop g5 followed by some knight g3, knight f5. Of course, king to h1 first, probably.
Knight e2 played, but I think the question that comes to mind is what was wrong with picking up the pawn on d5? It of course looks very loose with the knight on d4, but how can black take advantage of that? Bishop c5, can you just go bishop e3?
But then I get some tactics, yeah, rook a8, I don't know, all my pieces are coming quickly. Maybe I also have somewhere some bishop takes h3 streak, I don't know, but I understand why Hikaru doesn't even want to look at it. Why to give black any kind of counterplay?
No, makes perfect sense not to take this pawn. It gives black a lot of counter and yeah.
Right.
I like what he's doing. Slowly, king h1, and he's going to play knight g3, knight f5 after few moves, and it's quite difficult for black in this position, I believe.
I like Wesley's move a5 because this move looks like it's nothing. It looks so much more natural to play a move like a6, avoiding any trouble with the a7 pawn. But a5 serves a direct purpose that Wesley feels that it might be very important at some point to get the rook to a6. And as Hari also mentioned, white has this idea of going knight g3, knight f5. Then once you go rook e8, bishop f8, the knight on f6 is going to be a weakness. I mean, it's going to be loose. There are all kinds of knight a6, h6 tactics coming. So if you are in time to play rook a6, protecting the knight on f6, you get harmony. And Wesley instantly played the move a5. And this shows also, you know, how strong these guys are, that they feel every little aspect of every position.
So what happens if after rook e8 you continue with your idea of knight g3? How is black? How does black continue in this position? You want to go knight f5 next?
Probably bishop c5, no?
You want to go to c5?
Yeah, at least exchange one knight. I mean, there are too many knights coming. You know, if you go bishop f8, bishop g5, rook a6, knight h5. I don't know. I mean, it looks so dangerous.
Yeah, this was very unpleasant, this knight h5.
Oh, that's a really nice idea, taking advantage of the f7 pawn attack.
Yeah, and actually it's not just winning the knight back, but it's also checkmate.
Yeah,
so bishop c5.
It is a very strange thing to do, to exchange this dark square bishop for the knight, but I believe that's not such a bad trade in this current position.
Yeah, and probably the reason why Hikaru played the move king h1, because if he's not afraid of bishop c5, he would have never played the move king h1, then it would not be necessary.
Yeah.
So there is some respect against bishop c5, and Wesley uses immediately the move rook a6. Now, for example, against any knight g3, I might be in time to play g6. That's kind of one argument for black.
Peter, I'm looking at the Magnus Jan board as well, and I think we should jump to that because this position, we'll definitely get back to it. But let's take a look at what's going on here. So knight g6 was played.
Yeah, let me just quickly check how did it happen. So black played queen c6, white played h4. Yeah, Magnus, of course, in every position immediately reacts correctly. Yeah, h4, a5, takes, h5. That's the only way to disbalance black's position. White has to destroy black's pawn structure. A for bishop d2 first, knight e7, h6, g takes h6, queen h5, check, knight g6 on the board.
All right, so black has an extra pawn, but does white have enough compensation? Hari, what's your take on this position? And would you rather be white or black here?
I quite like what Jan did by fixing this a5, a4, and of course white is not obliged to play h4, h5, h6, but I think it creates some chances for white. Which side I'm going to pick? Probably none.
Hari's on our side. He picks the commenting side.
Yes. Well, I mean, I'm not playing, so obviously I can. I don't have pressure, so I can pick, peacefully. But on the other hand, players are playing, so it's a lot of things at stake. It's quite different for them, and of course it's much easier to pick white because he's the one who is attacking, and if something goes wrong. And in many endgames, white would hold on here. So in that sense, not statistics, but probability-wise, white has decent chances to survive, even if something goes wrong here for him.
Okay, interesting. My first question looking at this position was going to be, is bishop h6 possible, or does it lose on this spot? Because I don't see a way of taking advantage of this pin. So turns out that it is possible.
Yeah, it is probably possible, but it's kind of a very, very sad sign for white if he really had to take on h6. The point was that this knight e7, knight g6 maneuver was brilliant. It looked like the knight on d5 is so nice, and one can simply be fixed on this idea that I have to keep this wonderful knight on d5, but Jan felt that things are changing, new dynamic factors are appearing, and by moving the knight to g6, he solved his king problem, because suddenly his king is very, very safe with this f6, e6 pawns and the knight on g6. The way for black's queen is opened. There are all kinds of possibilities just to play queen d5, practically forcing the exchange of queens when black can never be worse, can only be better. So I'm loving what Jan is doing.
I think queen d5 is most likely to happen next, and after queen takes d5, he takes d5, probably some bishop move. Bishop e3 or d2, it doesn't matter. Knight e5, rook d1, king e6, just to have complete control, and then knight c4. Even if a move like rook e1, black is not afraid, he can play knight c4. So black's position is so good here.
And Magnus was shaking his head after this, clearly not pleased with the position he got. After queen d5, I have one question. Can white try to keep the queens on the board with a move like queen h2? Or is that, does black just go knight e7? What's going on after queen h2? Because white does have a threat of queen c7.
Maybe also e5, but...
Yeah.
But hang on, Jan played the move queen d6, which is very, very strange.
Wow.
What is this queen d6 move?
No. And rook d1.
But rook h6, queen g6 and draw.
All right, Hari predicting rook h6, queen g6, and that's a forced line, so we might just see it on the board. Rook h6, queen h6 runs into queen d1, so white can't take the rook back. After rook h6, there's no option but to go queen g6, right?
Yeah, otherwise queen h2, queen, this mate. So you have to take queen g6, rook rook d6 and rook g5. It's draw.
He's gone queen c6. He doesn't go rook h6. Very strange decision. Does he want to? Is he? I mean, he is. He's ahead in this set. But is this? Does this imply that he wants to continue this game?
No, I think Jan doesn't think if he's ahead or what is the situation. If he feels he can play, he will play, and if he thinks this is not the right move, he wouldn't do it. I don't think he's thinking all these statistics while playing.
That's actually a very interesting insight, Hari, because we saw that in his match against Lev as well, Peter, when he needed to just draw to advance. We saw him really go for it simply because the position demanded.
Yes. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, that's for sure. The only question for me, why on earth would you give these tempos for Magnus? I mean,
yes.
White was paralyzed and all of a sudden you let the rook from e1, which was doing nothing, be activated on d4 when it hints towards some rook g4 idea. I feel it was completely unnecessary.
Maybe he missed rook h6. I mean, probably he missed rook d1, but at the same time he had this rook h6 and he could escape. But I mean, I don't like to give just give two moves for white for no reason. And also, I mean, black's king is on f7 with the knight on g6. Okay, black should be okay here, but it's totally unnecessary to give two moves.
Okay, the real threat is rook g4. What is black doing after giving these two free moves to Magnus? How is he countering it? Because f5 looks very ugly, no? You wouldn't want to make a move like that. Just queen g5, and how is black continuing here?
Yeah, I want to hear Hari's move because I'm so shocked that I don't know what to do with black.
I mean, I just want to exchange the queens, but black no longer has this option of queen d5, which is quite annoying, to be honest. I mean, I wouldn't allow rook g4 and have rook g8 and then bishop e3. That looks really dangerous for black. So I have to create some counter chance.
Very strange play. Peter, let's just show what happened in the last two moves with this queen d6, rook d1, because everything was under control here. We're just talking about how pleasant black's position is after queen d5. And take a look at this. He's gone f5 in that position.
Wow.
Yeah, you usually go f5 if you feel that something is wrong with your position because it's not something you want to do by yourself.
Can white play g4 here?
G4?
G4.
Wow. But Magnus goes for rook d3. Magnus down to 4 minutes, but also Jan. Look at Jan was in very comfortable situation time-wise and also position-wise. He has burnt 5 minutes and put himself in a very, very ugly position.
I honestly don't know how. I mean, it is so difficult to defend such positions with just 2 minutes on clock.
You know, Hari and Tanya, suddenly it struck me, of course, we will have to know, it wasn't a blunder, but could it be that queen d6 was a mouse slip? Because this queen d6 looks so stupid. I mean, if it was intentional, then after rook d1, definitely he would have played rook h6 and took a draw and finished the game. But maybe he was so shocked that how did it happen after rook d1, disgusted, he went back to c6 and suddenly allowed rook d4. If that's really the case, that's the karma, the real karma that Jonathan was talking about in his tweet, no?
Yeah, you might
very possible.
Yeah, you might be right about that. It's a good chance.
I think that's very insightful because really if queen d6 doesn't have the idea of rook h6, it's a non-move. You're not really threatening anything. Mm-hmm. And perhaps Jan did want to make the move queen d5, but well, we can only find out later on, Peter. I think more and more chances, what Hari was also saying, that rook h6 was just never in Jan's mind. so simply did not intend to take the game in that direction, played queen c6, and now it looks like the world champion is the one who's going to be pushing this.
There is one nice trick if black's king is on e7. Of course, it's I mean, with queen g2 check, king g2, knight f4. Of course, here black cannot move the knight from g6. So how is white continuing the attack here?
Yeah, time-wise, okay. Jan down to 2 minutes. Magnus is now ahead on the clock with 30 seconds. Not that much. I mean, he really needs to find. But if he finds an unpleasant move for black, then the time will be a big issue for black. This position doesn't look like you can react or handle it just by playing any move that comes to your mind. You have to keep on calculating. You have to keep so many things under control. So time is going to be a big issue here.
Also, Peter, let's quickly jump to the Hikaru-Wesley game for just a minute, because that position also looks absolutely insane. Can you both please make sense of what's going on here?
Okay.
Good luck with that.
But why we should make sense of what they are doing?
I think the only sense that we can say that you see this a5 rook a6 was very important, because without this powerful rook on a6, black's position would most probably collapse. It gives stability for black. It looks like white has very nice position, but things are completely out of control. There are too many tactics.
Okay, is the tactic like knight f e6 works? Probably not.
No, Hikaru played the move knight h5.
Knight g4.
It's on the board.
What's this knight doing on h5?
Very hard to understand.
Because probably he thought rook g4, knight f6, or what? He missed the rook on a6 or what?
I mean, definitely something big was missed, because it's not only losing a pawn and the tempo. Now he has to lose another tempo, and where do you put this knight on h5? Suddenly the king on h1 is in big danger as well.
Tanya, can you look at Hikaru's face and tell us whether he missed or not?
I was actually looking at the other game on my screen, because I just saw that it does look like Magnus was in danger of getting mated with queen h2, and a move like queen c7 had happened. But let's get to this. I think let's do a quick body language check here. Hikaru really not giving much away for a change, I have to say. I think he looks like he's definitely in control, although shaking his head right there. I'm confused, but Peter, there is action all around. There's been a big trade-off of rooks on the Magnus-Jan board, so we'll come back to this. Let's take a look at that.
Okay, so in Jan's position, he gave two moves by playing queen d6, queen c6, and Hikaru gave a pawn by playing knight h5 and knight f4.
Yeah, and he invited the knight to g4. I mean, it definitely was a very big blunder, in my opinion, because the knight is stuck on f4. He cannot move it because rook h5 is checkmate, and Wesley jumps on the chance. He plays the move rook f6, pins the knight.
This is not looking good for Hikaru.
Yeah, this knight h5 almost feels like the same type of blunder as Wesley did in the first game, because it's really dramatic blunder.
Actually, if you don't laugh, I will suggest one move. That is maybe king h8, just to move away from all the pins, for the future.
White is just stuck, yeah, because queen d5 runs into knight e3 or knight f. Sorry, queen d5 runs into rook takes d5. Pardon me.
Okay, but I think b4 was played here, right?
Yeah, b4 was played, yeah. I'm also keeping an eye on the other game, because there probably the players are really done on the clock, so maybe we should just jump back there. Yeah, 120 for Magnus, 116 for Jan. Both players really done. on time, and Magnus enters with the queen to d8.
I really like this move. So you can't go. No, you could go knight h7. You're not getting immediately mated, but you do lose after queen g8, queen e6. So how is black defending this knight?
No, queen g8, h5 check.
Oh, queen g7, h5. That's
Yeah.
queen g8, queen g7, h5.
Yeah. So
Even
knight
stronger.
Knight h7 is not possible. I think.
How are you defending the knight with queen g7 or? Because queen c5 runs into queen f6 and that can be very dangerous, no?
Yeah, and if I try to check you, for example, check.
King h2 and king h3 probably.
Yes.
So maybe he has to play king f7, no?
And Jan played the move queen g7. This doesn't look right, doesn't feel right.
This doesn't feel right. I think king f7 had to be played.
Yeah. Now
And
queen
queen
a check,
b5.
the b5 pawn is falling, yeah?
b5 and a4 both, yeah.
Okay, knight g6 on the board. He's relying on knight takes h4 trick, but queen takes a4 protects the pawn.
He missed it.
Yeah.
Actually, he should have played at least a3 to get one pawn. You know, probably it's completely lost with b takes a3, queen c3, just a4. But this is what we have on the board is lost as well.
Oh, wow, so Magnus is completely winning here, yeah?
Yeah.
No,
Clear.
no counterplay for black.
No.
Yeah, no dramas at all. I mean, incredible.
Peter.
It looked like Magnus was pressing at the beginning, then things turned completely. I mean, it looked like black is in total control, and then just with this very mysterious queen d6 move, things turned completely. Queen h8 happening. Maybe it's not that dramatic. Jan is done on 18 seconds. Let us jump back to Hikaru.
I think this is also pretty much over.
The only thing white can still hope for is his knight on d4. However, since the king side is burning, it doesn't really give any benefit.
Yeah, queen e5 next, right?
Yeah.
And also Wesley's position is so solid. I mean, in order to win, at least there should be some kind of tricks. But in this case, the knight on g4 is doing an excellent job.
Yeah, stopping any kind of counterplay.
Do we have these moves or?
Yeah, this is now auto update. Yeah, I put on auto update. Queen e5, d4.
Queen e3. Maybe.
But you know, after what happened in the last game, I'm not writing anyone off right now. Although, yes, if we do look at the body language situation, Hikaru does look very upset with the position.
No, especially because he had such a golden opportunity to strike back. I mean, he really got something significant out of the opening.
Winning, I think it's rook h5. King g1 and then queen b1 check, rook f1, rook h1. Maybe this is the trick, rook g1 and black is lost.
Yeah.
I see. So this is why you need to move the king one to h8 just to be safe.
Yeah.
Okay, also bishop b5 should be winning here. I don't need anything.
Yeah, basically white doesn't have a next move.
Yes.
Yeah, king h7. Finally Wesley moved his king. Yeah.
Yes, that has my approval for sure.
Yeah, and let's just jump back to Magnus because with h5 he sealed the game with the nice little tactics. He was anyway completely winning, but it's a nice way to finish. The knight takes h5.
Queen g5.
Queen g5 wins the knight and the game. So yeah, resigned.
All right, so with that, Magnus equalized their set in game 2, and which means that Jan needs to win one game
Knight
to take it to
E3.
playoffs.
Knight E3 maybe is over or not. No, he's having some tricks. Knight E3, Rook E3, Rook G3, Rook G3. This is the trick. And some Rook G7.
Yeah, Bishop B5 on the board.
Yes, this is the way.
King H1 back.
What?
What?
Why?
Yeah, what is this? Wesley
Why he
just
went
went
back?
back with the bishop to this, and Hikaru was shocked. He was expecting that he has to design in the next move, and Wesley
And
moves
Bishop
back.
D5, is Wesley just repeating?
No, it was just
No.
one time.
Can he just take on E2 and take on D4 here?
Yeah, it should be. I mean,
Just a lot of
basically,
moves are possible.
Yeah, I think anything should be winning here. Maybe he's just trying to gain some time.
Yeah, he's down to 40 seconds. He doesn't have much time.
Aha, okay.
He has
he
to
can't-
fight with the clock.
He can't go Bishop D7 because that would be a draw,
Yeah.
right? Oh, he's
Bishop
gone
E2.
Bishop E2.
Yeah,
So
of
Knight
course.
E2 is not possible. Rook E2 only move, and now just Queen D4. He's gone Queen B1 check. So King G2 runs into Knight E3.
Queen G1 force.
Queen G1 only move. But then you trade and go Knight E5?
Knight E5, Rook E1. Okay, he's going to take all the pawns. Rook F3, Knight G5. H takes G5, Queen G4.
Interesting. So Rook
But
F3.
but it should be winning also, yeah.
Yeah, it's completely winning. That's why I'm even not interfering into analysis. I feel like three of us is too much for this position.
Okay,
And
fine.
30 seconds on the clock, so he has to make a move.
I think Rook F3, it's the simplest.
So Rook F3, Knight G5, H G5, Queen
Queen
G4, because
G4.
you can't take on F3 because of Queen H2 mate. So you just take the knight. And what's Black's next move there?
Probably Rook F6 after
Or Queen
G4.
F2 maybe. Rook F6 is also very strong.
Yeah, Wesley went back Rook GG6, Knight F4, and down to 15 seconds. Knight E5 played by Wesley.
Oh, this looks like it's over now, no? You have to pick up Knight G6 and
Knight G6.
on the board. Does he play Rook? No, he can't play. He can't play Rook G6, Hari.
Why he cannot play Rook G6?
He can.
Then you have Queen F2. Incredible blunder by Wesley.
Okay, he's taken Knight F3.
Knight F8.
Wesley shaking his head. I'm not sure why. What's going on here?
Knight F8 check, yeah.
King H8.
No, Knight E7, Knight E7, Queen G8 check, Knight E7.
No, but Knight E7 I have Knight G5.
Ah. But Knight F8 also I have King H8, yeah.
Yeah, you have King H8, but Knight D7.
And Rook E8 is a big threat in the position besides attacking the Rook.
Okay, Rook. But Rook G6, Queen F3. He has to play Rook G6.
Yeah, but now maybe Wesley gonna lose this game. I mean, he's down to 10 seconds.
Oh my god. Wesley shaking his head. Knight E1 would have run into Knight F6 and no way to defend against the Queen G8
So
mate.
now just Rook E6 and Queen F3.
Oh my god, what a turnaround. And look at Wesley, he's in shock. And Hikaru absolutely focused in the position. I mean, game 1, game 2, what is going on here?
Well, the tension, yeah, if the clock is ticking down, anything can happen, and we see this in these games. I mean,
oh my god.
These are brilliant players, but okay, when it's a mess on the board and you are having only few seconds on the clock, and exactly then things get out of control, it's very difficult to control everything.
Queen D4.
But maybe still holdable for Wesley. He's got 3 pawns for the piece.
Yeah, but with knight it's always tricky. I mean, even with because black has pawns and still black has to pick this b3 pawn. Otherwise, white would simply win. So something like queen f6, queen f8, king h7, queen f7, and queen e6, Hikaru could try. I don't know if there is some kind of perpetual. I mean, that's for Wesley to figure it out.
Well, I think his defense against queen takes c6 is to give a check on d1 and give a check on c2, and if the king moves up, then you collect the pawn with a check. Otherwise, you keep on checking. Maybe that's the defensive setup.
Yes, it looks like yes. Because knight f6, white's king cannot escape after, I don't know, queen d1 checks and a lot of checks.
And look at Hikaru trying to calculate the lines.
I think he's trying to tell us what he's going to play.
Harry, do you want to take over my body language reading job?
No. You're the expert.
Queen e8 check on the board. It's kind of a nasty check because you have to go to g7, king h7. Let's just quickly show. King h7 would run into knight f8 check, winning the queen.
King g7.
Very nice.
Nice.
King g7 force, queen e7 check, king h8 on the board. Nothing big has changed, but it was a nice little trick.
At some point, he's going to take on e6, I believe.
He's done it now, but now you could perhaps go queen a1, queen b2, and pick up the b3 pawn with a check if the king goes to the...
thing is still, it continues. I go king h4, and after, I mean, queen c4, king h5, you don't have queen e2 check. So
I think we're going to see it on the board, so let's see. And also Hikaru down to 47 seconds, and Wesley is even at the time, so expecting queen c2 on the board.
Yeah, it's kind of very unpleasant when you see that the white king gets closer to your king, because suddenly black's king might feel very naked, and he takes on b3 immediately. You see, he wants to keep the white king cut. On the other hand, it gives now white the chance to try to checkmate.
Unbelievable.
But there is probably no checkmate.
White should keep an eye on e2 square. So
Queen f6. So does he just want to go
king h7?
Queen f7 and knight f6, but then you'll have a lot of checks.
No, that will be just easy.
It'll be a perpetual.
Yeah.
So Hikaru, wow, Wesley comes out with the king.
Yeah, now he comes out. Okay, probably you can force it back anyway, because black cannot really go king g5. Can he? Then queen f6 looks like it. Aha, he goes for it. Okay.
On for it.
Nice. Okay, king g6, yes.
Queen f6.
Okay, we had this position already, no?
Wow, king h5.
This is dangerous. Queen f5, king h4.
But this is okay because knight is not joining the party yet, and the e4 square is controlled.
Yeah, still, I mean, you need a lot of nerves for king h5. On the other hand, also going back to the corner requires nerves. This is, you just feel like doesn't matter where you move the king, it's going to be in danger anyway.
Yeah.
I think Wesley constantly shaking his head. It's also so difficult to stop thinking about the kind of position you had from where you're coming from.
But who is more upset? So Wesley or Hikaru?
I mean, this is the best position Hikaru has had all game, all match actually so far.
Okay.
Okay, at the start of the game, it looked promising for Hikaru. So in this sense, he might feel the regret that, okay, he had his chance. On the other hand, Wesley was completely winning again. So very big disappointment for him. I think it's very important now for Wesley that he got back to 1 minute, 15 seconds. So he got this 10-second increment with the moves, and this gives him some chance to settle down with his nerves, because if he would have to keep on playing with 10 seconds on the clock, after what happened in the game would have been impossible in my view.
Yeah, if both of them are short on time, I believe Hikaru is just much better. I mean, he's so fast with bullet and all the practice he has. So that's why I think Wesley would like to have some at least 1 minute on the clock at all time, and that's probably the reason why he was repeating bishop b5, bishop d7 on move 36 or something. Or I mean, bishop e2 looked so natural. And anyway, I think we are going to see queen e2. So he wants queen c4, knight e5 check.
So queen c4 not possible here. I think you're absolutely right. It's going to be about Wesley just keeping a little time on his clock and not thinking too much about the big winning position he just had before that slip. And it can also play a bit of havoc in your psychology, knowing that last 2 games you've been completely winning, to come into this position where now he's just trying to hold on. And objectively, even if it's a draw, it's with short time on the clock, queen and knight on the board, anything can happen. And I think Hikaru will play this forever.
I guess so.
Yeah, on the other hand, with the queen on c3, one does feel like black is able to control all kind of mating ideas. It was important. I liked Wesley's decision to not try to grab the b3 pawn by check, which was very, very tempting. And he judged it right that, okay, there is no mating stat against my king. Okay, so knight f8.
Knight f8 finally.
Queen e6 or what?
Queen e6. He could he go king f4?
I guess he will.
King f4, knight g6. You still have king g5.
Yeah.
And now you're actually threatening checks with your queen. So white could take queen h6 with a check.
Okay,
and
now it's black is completely fine.
Yeah, exactly.
And
it's a draw, yeah.
Wow. Oh my God, I can't believe that turnaround that we just saw in both our games, Wesley and Jan Nepomniachtchi. I mean, they were doing so well. Peter, hurry, take over, because this is just impossible. Okay, first let's just do a recap of our results. Magnus Carlsen won his second game against Jan Nepomniachtchi in absolutely unbelievable style. Could have perhaps potentially been a mouse slip by Jan when he played queen d6. We don't have a confirmation on that, but that looked like where everything changed and things completely turned around for the world champion. And Wesley saw his second completely winning position, absolutely dominating from the start, although Hikaru was better out of the opening, but once Wesley took off, it looked like it was going to be resigned from the 5 times US champion was going to resign, but instead Hikaru did what he does best, resourceful play, kept fighting, and then just Wesley messed it up. Hikaru took over and we saw what happened. Peter, hurry, what was that round?
Yeah, Peter, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I'm kind of speechless because it felt like, Jan stormed to the scene today. He won a crushing game 1. Finally, he was back in the match, and then we also saw a completely different Magnus. I mean, with the white pieces, he had a very specific idea. He tried to disbalance Jan right from the beginning in the Alapin with this a4, a5, a6 idea. And probably we don't have, and the game is already on. It just started. So we don't have much time to speculate. We can speculate while we will be commenting on that game. But in any case now, Magnus, as he does it so often when he loses a game, I don't know how he does it, because his game by far was not impressive in this second game. He lost the control at some point, but all of a sudden then it after all was a smooth victory, thanks to this queen d6 blunder, mouse slip, whatever. I mean, this mysterious queen d6 move.
I completely agree with that, Peter. Not just this time, but we've seen this typical trait of the world champion that when he loses, somehow he immediately bounces back with a win. Hari, how does he do that?
I think he just takes one game at a time. That he doesn't. I mean, of course, there will be some effect of previous loss without any doubt. However, I think he practiced or I mean over the years or whatever. In almost all the events, if you see, he always starts slow, but as tournament progress, he gains a lot of strength and progress. He's maintaining his energy and strength, whereas other players are maybe not tired, but they are blundering. And I would say that's the biggest strength of Magnus.
Yeah, we've seen him in so many events, over the board events, online events. Just coming back immediately after, I think he's got that capacity to not go on tilt. That tolerance is a lot more. He's able to sort of come back to the next game, forgetting what's happened in the previous round, perhaps better than the others.
I think it's also very, very important, to bounce back. Of course, it's very important, but I mean, what I want to say that imagine that, some football games as well, right? That nothing is happening for like 50, 60 minutes, then suddenly the opponent scores a goal, and there is suddenly this euphoria of your opponent, which has to be used immediately. And if the opponent kind of settles in and he keeps his lead in the next couple of minutes, then the game again takes its routine, natural course. But for one minute, kind of for 1.5 minutes, there is this chance in the football also to strike immediately. And this is often seen that you have the euphoria, you are leading, and all of a sudden your opponent equalizes and things slow down again. And I feel like Magnus feels it very well that in these matches, if you are not capable of bouncing back immediately, you carry all these negative emotions with you that you have just let your opponent take the lead. It's going to be with each game more and more difficult to come back. And he's using this little gap. And of course, it's very, very impressive that he succeeds because everybody wants to do it. But for some reason, only Magnus manages almost always to do it.
Absolutely incredible. Hari, I'm looking at this position that we have in front of us. It's just so, at least to me, it feels extremely not typical. Firstly, going knight f5, giving up this knight for the bishop when you have to capture with the pawn, and allowing black this beautiful looking center. What am I missing, or can you tell us a little bit more about this position? Why white would do that?
I think, I had prepared this this particular setup to play first knight a5 and bishop e6 to discourage certain setups from white side. And knight h4, knight f5 is of course one of the main ideas here, to have e takes f5 and maybe sometimes g4, g5. It's a very interesting setup, of course, and Magnus seems well prepared and he knows what he's doing. I already had a game against Sergey last June or July, I forgot, but now I think we can see maybe e4 or because d4, actually d4 is also possible here. So something like d4, bishop f6, d takes c3, bishop e7, queen e7, b takes c3, and okay, e4 is possible, but just to show that the bishop is stuck on a2. But of course, there are many ideas in this particular position, and I'm not sure if e4 is also a move here instead of d4. Yeah, d takes e4, d takes e4.
Yeah, in all these lines, it all comes down that white tries to open up his bishop on a2. If he succeeds, then he gets very nice grip, then the light squares will be very, very weak. And black does everything, even sometimes, as Hari's line showed, black is ready to sacrifice 1 or 2 pawns in order to make sure that this bishop is locked forever on a2.
So yeah, both d4 and e4, I guess black will choose one of these two moves. Maybe knight c6 is also a move. I'm not entirely sure.
And how was your game against Sergey?
I I don't remember this game so well, so I have to look at this game. But it wasn't this particular. It was not queen f3, I think.
Okay. So this is already now a new position compared to
new
that.
Position,
yeah. Yeah, very, very tough choice for black. I mean, because both moves are very tempting. Yeah, this is one of the things that actually top players and any level players hate in rapid blitz chess. When you have two seemingly equal continuation, it would be much better to only have one, then you could blitz it out, you have no regrets. But here to decide, because it's a completely different battle after e4 and d4.
Actually, d4 is worse, I think, because d4 simply bishop f6, d takes c3, bishop e5, I just remember. And after d4, bishop f6, white has this nice square on e4 for the knight. And at some point, white is going to play b4, not immediately, and then have this a to g8 diagonal for the bishop. And this is excellent position for white. No, it has to be e4. It's d4 is not the way.
Yeah, and e4 on the board. Magnus has played the e4 move. D takes e4, d takes e4, and queen h3. Kind of. I don't know exactly if this is still preparation by both sides, or they are kind of, they knew or they remembered that this was the direction, and they go with the flow. That also often the case, because if you know that this is the direction, then even without knowing exactly what is happening, you believe that it's a strategical position. I'm a good player. I'm going to figure it out over the board. On the other hand, when it happens, then you feel like, it would be so nice to know these small little details, because this is modern chess. It's never so simple. It's never static. All these strategical ideas combined with move pair, move play, the engines had such a huge impact. Every single position is based on tactical nuances as well.
Yeah, I mean, it also depends what happens, the result of the game, because if you have everything prepared in your laptop and you miss something and you lose, you feel like, why didn't I check further and so on. But on the other hand, you have to, one has to see from practical point of view that we are playing rapid games, and we of course don't have much time to prepare in between the games. So I think they just know some ideas. Of course, they have it in laptop, but it is impossible to remember until move 30 in every variation. So the dangerous ones, I guess they are aware of how to react, but something like a positional ideas, they can play over the board.
Okay, so we're looking at this position. White has just gone rook e1, hitting the pawn on e4 now. Firstly, of course, we have to figure out how black is defending this, but I see this bishop on a2, which looks completely dead. White's got these two f pawns. I would prefer to be black here. What's your take on this? Who is doing well here, and what's going on in terms of evaluation? Because as we can see, the eval bar that we do have in front of us, as usual, is of no help at all.
Yeah, this is the typical scenario that those are the mysterious 0-0 positions. Of course, somewhere it's kind of logical that it's a dynamic equality, but why and how, it's very difficult to understand. One thing I would love to point out, that this bishop on a2 looks like a dead piece, but especially Jan's last move, rook a1, indicates that he believes that he might bring it back with bishop b1, and since the pawn on e4 gonna fall sooner or later, there are ideas for white to play bishop b1, then capture on f6, take with the knight on e4, and suddenly after c2, c3, we will be saying that this bishop on b1 is doing incredible job of putting pressure on the a7 pawn, and the bishop is suddenly back in business. So this bishop is by far not completely dead.
Very interesting. Now, after rook e1, Hari, how can black fight against the threat of I'm not sure if knight e4 is actually an immediate threat, which makes me think that perhaps black could also make a move like rook e8 because knight e4 doesn't work, right? You just take on e4 and the bishop on
after
g4.
rook e8, knight e4 simply doesn't work, as after knight e4, white loses a piece since bishop
Let's just show
e7,
that
rook,
1 second.
bishop g5 or bishop e7, rook takes e7, defending the knight on e4. But I would guess that white would play bishop b1 and rook at d8, bishop f6. At some point, white has to take bishop f6, knight e4, and after bishop b2. I mean, if black doesn't capture the pawn, he's just a pawn down. And yeah, move like c3 followed by f6, and so I mean, first c3 probably. Yeah, after bishop b2, c3. Yeah, now white threatens to play f6 at some point. Maybe black would go f6, but it's messy. It's really messy here.
Very interesting.
And this is on the board. Yeah, rook f8, bishop b1 played. It all makes sense. And look at the engine evaluation bar, does not change at all. He kind of approves all these moves. These moves are in the spirit. It's very easy to say that these moves are coming. The very difficult thing over the board to figure it out where it will lead. Yeah. And now we see that actually, in my opinion, white's task is much easier because white has a clear plan. He wants to take on f6, take on e4, and then go c3. And black has to figure out how to put the best setup against it, which is by far not so obvious.
Yeah, I actually don't know if white is going to wait a bit longer to even threaten something like g4, move the bishop and have g5, f6 kind of ideas. But okay, of course, it requires a lot of calculation as knight c6, knight e5, knight f3 is an option. Yeah, so rook at d8.
We might see your line, Hari. And you know, for me, what's incredible about this position, which of course you and Peter both pointed out, but very instructive, just the fact that how we presume the bishop on a2 is dead, with this very unconventional, maybe thematic, but a very unconventional concept of playing bishop b1, and at some point you want to get c3 to open it up. And before that, you just bring the rook from a1 to e1 and centralize it. We're seeing the position, as you mentioned, Hari, is bishop b2 the way, looks like the only move?
It's not the only move, but if you do not capture the pawn on b2, black would be simply a pawn down, and white will just roll over.
Doesn't make sense. Bishop b2 on the board. Are we expecting c3 now?
Yeah, this is, I think so. Otherwise, black would go c3 himself, if at least, I mean, to close this bishop, because basically if white's bishop on b2 is controlled by, you know, having c3, knight c4, black is completely fine. So I would guess either f6 or c3, one of these moves.
Yeah, those two moves are of course very tempting. I mean, c3 is the move that you play instantly, but once you spot that there is also f6, then you kind of start hesitating, and f6 is Jan's style. He felt like maybe if he plays the move c3, black gonna play f6. And it looks like long terms you might have dangerous counterplay, but on the other hand, the queen side is falling. Bishop takes AC gonna happen, and it's not obvious how to give direct mate. So in this regard, maybe the move f6 is practically speaking perfectly understandable.
And it's on the board, Peter, as you said, Jan style. When you have an option between f6 and c3, you know the one that Nepo is going to go for. We also have liftoff in the other game. It's still early theory stages. I think this is a very exciting game. So let's take a quick look at that and then come back to this.
No, it will be a draw. This is all theory.
Exactly, and they already had this game against each other in the US Championship. I think in the very last round, they already had this game against each other. Yeah, so probably Wesley feels like, you know, there was so much adventure in these last two games. Let me just settle in. I don't have any opening problems. Let's keep the pressure on Hikaru and let me calm a little bit down.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's just, this should be over really soon. It's already been played between these two players, as Peter pointed out. And
I think 2 minutes maximum they will finish here.
Yeah, I even have the feeling that sooner.
Yeah, maybe. Okay, let's try to guess 1 minute or 2 minutes.
Yeah, I think 1 minute.
Okay, so
All right, so
no,
instead of
I would say 30 seconds. 30 seconds.
Okay, come on, guys, come on. Yeah,
Come on.
that's it.
Harry wins.
Okay, I
Harry
won.
wins. And that's it. All right. So take a look at this. Hikaru Nakamura going into his game 4. He must win to take the match into a playoff. Otherwise, it's end of the road for the 5 times US champion. Wesley So needing only a draw in their last round. Wesley will be playing with the black pieces. Hikaru will be playing with white. And perhaps that's why Hikaru was fine with the draw that just happened, because this gives him a white in the next game. Definitely has to go all out. All right, let's jump to the other game because we left it at f6. Peter has black. Black hasn't yet made a move.
Yeah, black just made the move right now, and I would like to mention about Hikaru's choice. I think it was absolutely the right decision. He also had too much advantage in the last 2 games. We have seen him taking big risk with the black pieces in the very first game, and we have also seen how it backfired. And if he would have lost the game with the black pieces, he would be just simply eliminated. So it's very natural from him that he decided for this game to be absolutely professional and knew that, okay, after all, he will have a chance if Wesley takes the draw. It was also not exactly clear that Wesley will rely on this strategy or not. So draw is fine. And if now Hikaru can try to go all in with the white pieces.
Harry, what's your blind prediction of game 4? Do you think Hikaru will do it or not?
I
really enjoy putting everyone on a spot.
I think he will.
He will?
Yeah, he will. I think he will. Wesley is under pressure. Okay, the thing is, Wesley made sure that he doesn't lose his white game. Then he would be under pressure that he loses. He has to defend this black game from in game 4. So he just played something solid and made draw. Wesley's somewhat relaxed in the sense like he's not going to lose the match if he draws the if he loses the 4th game. I believe Wesley is +1 right now, right? Or
yeah, Wesley. No, I mean today they are equal. Today they are equal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
this is very strange because we are still used to the previous tour, and I believe that the players also have some trouble adjusting to this situation, and exactly that's the point. For example, if Hikaru managed to bounce back, then all of a sudden in the playoff, Wesley is also on the verge of elimination. If he loses the playoff, he's out. So there is simply not this bonus like it used to be in the previous tour that you win one set, then you lose one set, and the new 3rd day is coming. This puts the players even more under pressure.
Yeah, this is. I was under this impression because I was actually checking the match between Magnus and Anish, and then it was 2-2, and I was waiting for the playoff because I was still waiting for the playoff, and I don't see their playoff game, and then I found out that you do not have to play playoff. So yeah, I think Hikaru has good chances from the white side. I don't know if we will see Dutch. Maybe
well, time will tell, and really not only judgment day for Hikaru, but judgment moment very soon. But for now, we have only this one. Hari, also Peter had a very interesting insight, which so far has been proven right. So he said that, if you win on the day of the playoff, for example, you make a comeback win, if you've lost the first set and you come back with a win on day 2, actually the player who's won on day 2 immediately going into the playoff has a psychological advantage. Would you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely. Of course, when you are in a situation where you have nothing to lose, and then all of a sudden you get playoff. So obviously, the player who won the second day has at least some, but I would say in the previous, as we saw in the quarterfinals, almost all the matches were decided. All the players who won on round 2 or day 2 won the matches. So and I believe in rapid and blitz, like a rapid format, it makes a lot of sense. In from classical to rapid is a different story, but in 15 minutes, 20 minutes to 5 minutes, definitely the players who wins on day 2 has advantage.
Wow, so Hikaru in a must-win situation. And let's come back to this game. Jan Nepomniachtchi with his final white for today. Magnus has just offered the queen trade. What are we expecting for Jan to move away with a move like queen h4? Or I think trading queens is not a good idea for white. What do you think?
It's not a good idea, and Jan is never going to do it. So we don't have to calculate that move at all. And
Fair enough.
We can just calculate if it will be queen g3 or queen h4 or queen h5. I mean, these moves probably.
Yeah, I think it's also very important to point out, because we already mentioned that Hikaru is in a must-win situation in his next white game. This applies for Jan Nepomniachtchi as well, because this is his last white game, and if he's not managing to get the lead, then it's going to be very, very tough against Magnus with the black pieces. So in this regard, I do believe that Jan will burn the bridges. He will definitely try to risk as much as possible in this game. Whether it's going to be enough, that's a big question. Now he's taking his time. He has
Maybe
lot of different moves. After queen g3, probably black plays the move g6 because there is nothing else. And it looks like, now you bring the queen closer and it should be somehow checkmate, but things are not so easy. Something like queen g5 might run into queen f5. And after queen h6, suddenly the bishop hits back on f6. So let's not forget about black's bishop on b2 as well.
And Peter, this is why I was wondering if white can go queen h4, because then there's a sneaky idea of going queen g5. If let's just make a non-move on the board like knight c6 or c3, something that we've been thinking about, or c3, just queen g5, and now g6 runs into queen h6. So we kind of get that tempo. But after queen h4, and queen g3 on the board, so expecting g6 now, as mentioned, because there's pretty much no other move. So how can white continue to fight for the initiative here?
If queen f4, bishop a3 and bishop f8 is possible. So white has to keep control of, to not allow this bishop to return to f8.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's why queen e3, Hari, just keeping an eye on the a3 pawn as well as threatening queen h3, but queen h6. But what is, okay, yes. I was thinking about bishop f6 till I realized that knight f6 is a check.
So queen e3, the issue is queen f5.
Okay, not much of an issue.
How to proceed here, right?
After c3, bishop a3 and bishop f8. So that is what I was trying to figure, if there is some trick here.
Queen b6.
Huh? You want to, but wait, knight b3, knight d6, or what? Rook e1?
It's just such a crazy position. Wait, what? How did the
knight
f6
d6, queen f6. Knight d6, queen f6.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I just jumped back because Magnus used the chance of sacrificing the exchange. Okay. And this does feel like a very nice practical way, because black has lovely compensation. In fact, one could argue that black simply cannot lose this position, but we have already seen what's happening when I'm saying something like this. So I'm not sure if I should be saying or not, but it looks like a wonderful compensation. Black has everything under control. There are no more mating ideas. Yeah, Magnus goes b4, and white, I would say white is in trouble, but maybe it's still good enough to hold the balance, but not enough to play for advantage.
Yeah, queen a4 is also possible. Just king g7, queen a4.
So then perhaps queen e3 was an inaccuracy by Jan, allowing this exchange sacrifice?
Yeah, I'm not liking it. The big question is, they have been really spending a lot of time. Jan was thinking like 4-5 minutes. the move Queen H4 was keeping much more tension in the game. So I believe we are maybe anyway Black was taking on E4, but okay, at least then you win a tempo. I don't know. It's kind of quite hard to understand that. I believe voluntarily Jan would have never entered this position, so he might have felt that he's forced to do so, or he missed something.
And the one thing that you don't want to miss is a giveaway that we're having. Hari, tell us about that. We can win a copy of your new course. How does one do that?
Well, actually, I'm not on Instagram, but I did receive the free the giveaway by Chessable. So I have to go and check how.
Hari is the worst promoter of his own course, as you can see.
Well, my students are my promoters, so I have been getting messages from my students that they are, enjoying the course, and that's my promotion, I would say. And of course, I don't know if someone can just tell what needs to be done.
I'll get a confirmation on how you can do this, but it's on Instagram. You can win an entire lifetime repertoire course of Hare Krishna on the Taimanov. As Hari had joined us last time, he did mention that it's a course that there's also a short and sweet version of it that you can check out before you buy it. It's an opening which doesn't require a lot of memory and a lot of lines, but more themes and ideas and plans. And that's what Hari's played. Big chunk of his career, it's out of his own experience. He analyzes a lot of his own preparation in it. So if you want a line in Sicilian, it's pretty much the only course that you need. Check it out on Chessable currently, and there's also a giveaway on. And that reminds me to remind all of you to go and vote, because you only have until tomorrow. And again, it's a very close fight on which player is going to be back for the second leg. Hari, I don't know if you know about this. Do you know about this?
Yes, I do. Yes.
Oh, great, because then that gives me the segue to my next question, that who would you have voted for?
Can I vote?
Please tell us that you're a premium member on Chess24, and if you're not, just don't say anything.
I think I am, but okay, I don't want
you
to.
Are.
You know, all are my friends, so it's not fair to, everyone is, I'm friends with, so it's not fair to promote one person. So I would, I'm staying away from the voting.
That is just too diplomatic for my liking.
No, it's not. No, but this is the truth. So I don't know who is going, but whom did you vote for?
I actually voted live, because we wanted to show all our audience how they can vote for a player. And it's very important that you do go premium. Now, if you're premium, you will have an opportunity to vote at every event of the tour to bring back one player who did not make it into the quarterfinals. Of course, besides all the premium membership benefits, such as challenging all the players in Banter Blitz, as well as Q&As. Talking about who I vote, and there you have it. We've got a great reduction on a 50% off. Hari, you don't have to go for this because you're a grandmaster. You're already a premium member. So talking about who I voted for, I went for Vidit. He's, of course, a friend of mine. But more than that, I feel that the performance that we saw from him, especially on day 2 and on day 3, it was clear that he really does belong up here. And it's the experience factor that's perhaps missing. Hari, how did you feel? Now, you and Vishy are the two players who have played on this tour, part of the first Magnus Carlsen chess tour. And this year we had Vidit play in the Skilling Open. How did you feel about his performance?
I think one of the major factor is definitely the sleep, because obviously he is playing, I forgot the time zone, but it should be like starting at 10:30 and going all the way like 4 a.m. or something. I mean, of course, I also feel sorry for Dean, because he's probably playing whole night. But this is, of course, one of the major things. I believe that after a day or two, he got into rhythm by playing nice games. Of course, it takes some time to play. The time control, the online tournaments, and the pressure and the whole atmosphere. You are playing against monsters here, and there is no easy game, so that takes some time for sure. And yeah, I mean, when I saw him playing, I could feel that not lack of sleep, but the fact that he plays at midnight or around that time is a bit of problematic. But I was thinking maybe if there were 2 more days, it would be good, because you get used to the sleep patterns. I myself, when I'm traveling to various other countries, it takes some time to adjust, and I guess that's what happens when you have to change the time zones and different sleeping patterns. And yeah, I think for sure it's a great experience, and playing against each one of them is a great learning experience for everybody.
Absolutely, Hari. I think some incredible insights by you there. And in fact, I do know that Vidit, for 2 weeks before the event, to just adapt to the time zone, had actually changed his entire sleep schedule so that he could be fresh. But it is very difficult and challenging for both Ding and Vidit. All right, I see Peter joined us, and we can get back to the action. We also have liftoff in the other game. Peter, can you take us through or let's just get an update on this position first.
Yeah, I mean the update is it's not very good for Jan, because he simply has no chance to play for a win. I guess the problem is that after c3, black has the move knight. Yeah, and it's on the board, knight c2, and all of a sudden, if you capture on c2, b takes c2, there are all kinds of rook d1 issues all happening on the board.
Maybe
rook
draw,
c1
yeah.
played.
Or no. Maybe draw, no?
Yeah, probably we're gonna see this rook d2 or rook d1, rook d2. Yeah,
It's going to be draw.
And
yeah,
rook e2, rook d1 repeat.
Since white doesn't have anything better than to just keep chasing the rook, and then it's a draw.
So if Magnus draws the next game, he's in finals.
Yes, he goes through.
Okay.
So Jan has to, and we see a repetition there, which means that going into game 4, Jan Nepomniachtchi with the black pieces has to win on demand. The very uphill task, but we did see him in his element in the first 2 games. He did have a better position. So anything can still happen, hard to predict. But this, let's go to the opening of the other match, a very, very crucial match for Hikaru, who has to win with the white pieces here. What do you think about this opening and the position that we have? A good opening choice by Hikaru in a must-win situation?
I am not. I mean, this is fine. This is okay position for black, in my opinion. Of course, it's a good choice by Hikaru, as he put some pressure. But on the other hand, it's not so difficult to find moves for black here.
Yeah, I believe it's always very tricky when someone asks in a must-win game, is it the right strategy or not? If you win the game, everybody will say that, yeah, it was a perfect strategy. If you did not win, nobody will have to ask you had advantage or it was good or bad. They will just remember, no, you should have done something different. Yeah, it's always very tough, and you only have this one little chance. Hikaru tried e4 against Wesley yesterday and today, and he felt like it was leading nowhere. We have also seen that he was kind of ready to play the Trompovsky against Maxim Vachier-Lagrave in their match, but it was not really serving him well. In this regard, it was kind of natural that Hikaru adopts an opening, the Reti with knight f3, g3, bishop g2. After all, with the black pieces, how many times he has won thanks to this bishop on g7? then why not to do it with tempi up? That's kind of one explanation. If you are in a must-win situation, you don't want to go into some theoretical opening clash, just rely on some strategical feeling, then play something that you are kind of feeling familiar with.
Actually, I quite like what White is doing here. Since the knight is on e7 and Black has played c6, so this knight is kind of misplaced, I would say. And knight on d4 is not doing great either, because I would say like something like e3, g4, Black has to give up the bishop. So in that sense, yes, I think Hikaru definitely, keeps some chances here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is the maximum you can hope for against Wesley. So, I mean, Wesley is such an incredibly solid player. I think one of the reasons also behind knight f3, d5, g3 against Wesley is that usually he is the player who goes for who allows the king's Indian attack.
Yeah.
And probably Hikaru, by feeling that this is knowing that this is a must-win.
Yeah, the famous game between Tigran Petrosyan and So Wesley from Pro Chess League. So yeah, here at least White can hope for some action and some sacrifice, or to get some chances. I think this is a very good choice, especially when White is planning to have a long game. And I think g6 is kind of surprise, no? Or
it kind of surprised me, but Wesley already did it against Anish Giri in the preliminaries. Right. However, he ended up with a very bad position. So I'm pretty sure that Hikaru kind of expected it, but on the other hand, he might have not been sure that Wesley will repeat it, because that game went really awful for him. And I don't know exactly, because we haven't been covering that game live at that very point, and I'm not sure if rook b1 was the first new move. I believe that this position still happened in that game.
Actually, after rook b1, maybe it made sense to provoke e4 by playing bishop f5, e4 and bishop g4 to have the option of knight d4.
Yes, something like this happened in the previous game.
Okay.
Because at some point I thought that, wow, Wesley was very, very clever. I mean, he departed from the light square bishop, he got knight to d4, and it all looked good. But later it turned out that he was kind of struggling. I don't really know exactly how, because when we saw it, it was already just a very bad endgame. Okay. Now he applies a different strategy, and this is somewhat surprising for me that Hikaru is not going after the light square bishop with g4. On the other hand, probably he wants to fix the c5 square first, because after something like g4, bishop takes e4, knight takes e4, Black would have definitely played the move f5. And if after g takes f5, g takes f5, knight g3, something like e4 or maybe a5 first. And then, if you're going to go e4, you're going to go knight g6, then the position is not bad at all. I mean, despite you lost the light squared bishops. So Hikaru decides to, he makes sure that he gets his pawn to b4. That was his main thing. And it's not clear how Black going to solve this issue anyway, because the knight has to stay on e6. And if you are able to play g4 in the next move, then of course b4 a3 makes a lot of sense.
So let's say if Black takes on b4, a takes b4, a takes b4, rook f d8, where would you place the queen? To e2?
Well, feeling wise to e2.
e2, yeah. Okay.
I hope not to run into any tactics, but it seems like knight b4 is still not possible.
Yeah, I like White's position here. Simply, the knights on e6 and e7 are not coordinated at all, and at some point g4 will happen.
Yeah, I have the feeling, if Hikaru sees his position, and he is definitely very, very happy that he got a playable position, he gets a position where he has all the chances, and look at this, he even puts the queen on b3. What I might feel that he might be regretting that why he didn't try to play the Reti so far against Wesley, if it would have promised such a position, because he was struggling there in these e4, e5 structures without any clear idea, and all of a sudden he is just presented a nice possibility with the white pieces.
Well, when the fact that Wesley needs just a draw here and Hikaru needs a win changes the whole thing. As you know, when you are not under pressure, you would choose some other opening, and maybe you would not reach this position if Wesley is not under pressure.
And Black's gone for bishop e4. Does he want to play f5 regardless of what white recaptures with?
No, then c5 and knight d6 or...
But you won't have time, no? Like you take knight e4, Black could go f5.
Yeah, c5.
Oh, c5 anyway, because the e6 knight hangs.
Yeah.
So knight d5, knight d6 is what you were saying?
Yeah, knight d6.
Yeah, very, very strange. I mean, I find it very hard to explain what is happening here, because
I think I know what he wants. After knight f5, knight e4, he wants to go knight f5. So move like g4, he might even put the knight on h4.
Yeah, but of course white will never go.
Now just c5. Yeah,
c5 and
but c5, Black might try to exchange the pawns. I mean, it's like he just needs to draw. So that's something which he has in mind. If he exchanges both b and c pawns, then he's just drawing.
Yeah, but even that I just hate so much. I mean, with this bishop on g2 versus the bishop on g7 and the black pawn is on e5. I mean, to my eyes, this looks just incredibly shaky. However, after capturing with the bishop, at least there was this option of f5. Hikaru goes for knight a4, but can I protect myself with something like rook f6 and then knight b6, queen c7, or somehow just to protect?
So just to show everybody what's the idea, after fe4, white wants to jump in knight b6 and your queen doesn't have a good square to defend the e6 pawn, which is why Peter is suggesting rook f6 to keep control over the e6 knight.
Yeah.
Yeah, rook f6, very ugly move. I mean, even king f7 is maybe possible, but okay, both moves look pretty ugly. And
Peter, why not knight d5?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Besides, I just realized that Black also has knight d5 and it's on the board.
But bishop d5, cd5, knight b6, you have queen c6 or what?
No, but now I can take knight b6, queen c6, and something like bishop a3.
Threatening b5?
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Or maybe even rook d1 instead of bishop d1, because after d4 he takes d4, you're stuck. And I don't know what's
it's
next.
on the board, Hari. Bishop d5, cd5, played.
Yeah, we are going to see knight b6, I think.
So what's the line after knight b6, queen c6, rook d1, Peter? How can Black keep it together? Or can he keep it together?
Maybe knight g5, it's time to start some counter. I don't know, it looks very strange.
Yeah, looks very, very strange. Okay, there is this defensive knight c7, a very, very ugly defensive move. But maybe there is an argument that if I'm not losing on the spot, then I might be able to put my queen on e6 and later create something on the king side. After all, white exchanged his powerful bishop on g2. So white should make sure that he wins in the next couple of moves, or gets a very big advantage, because if the game keeps on going, then Black will always have chances.
Yeah, if king h8, d4 comes, I think, or f4, it's Black who is fighting for advantage, yes. So knight b6, queen c6, maybe bishop a3 to create immediate threats of b5.
But you know, now that I spotted this knight c7 move, I realized that I can... I cannot, because then you go with c6.
But knight g5 could be nice.
Yeah, even sorry to interrupt, but even this maybe gives me some kind of, instead of resignation, some counterplay. But yeah, you are right that if I can go to g5, then I will use this chance.
b5, queen e6, and then f4 will be very dangerous, I think.
Yeah, yeah. No, to my mind, this is completely crazy that after bishop takes e4 to let black get some dynamic possibilities. I mean, I believe that if it's not a must-win situation for Hikaru, he would almost certainly from 100 games, 100 times capture back with the knight on e4. Yes. He might have felt that, this is a must-win situation, he has to do something special. But by doing something special, he gives chances for Wesley. Yeah, rook d1 on the board. So basically, Hikaru wants to force black to go for knight c7, because after knight c7, at least the knight would never jump to g5, which is very, very scary.
All right, so what's white's move after knight c7?
I think we...
That's a very big question to me.
Maybe bishop a3 here.
Is b5 really stupid?
Queen c5, no?
Bishop a3?
Queen b6.
Oh, it is really stupid.
Yeah, no, that's why Hari tries to prepare it with bishop a3, but somehow I have the feeling that moving all the pieces to the queens, on the other hand, bishop on c1 doesn't really do much. Okay, it does stop the f5, f4 idea. Once you go there, I feel that I want to do it. f4 runs into e4, so I have to watch out.
Maybe just rook fe8 for the start, no? To have b5 queen e6, or
maybe I can also move the queen immediately, no?
Yeah, queen e6, and after b5 just to move the rook, not to give this c6 at all.
Yeah, no, I very much would love to play the move f4. Can I do that?
Yeah, but yeah, it's possible, but okay. You are making us to calculate. You are forcing us to calculate now.
Yeah, exactly. This e4 business. Yeah, it's a completely clear. But I believe that black is already very happy if it gets to craziness, because it simply looked like strategically he was busted, and if he gets counterplay, then that's very good news for him. But he's taking his time, and I'm not sure. Does he really think he has another move? And while we are waiting for that, we get the news that the Magnus Carlsen game against Jan Nepomniachtchi has started. So Jan Nepomniachtchi also in a must-win situation. He is in a must-win situation with the black pieces. And of course, Magnus for this game chooses the most solid, most reliable line with bishop g5 check against the Najdorf.
I remember this a4 move once Magnus played against Anish when he needed to make a draw. I don't remember which event.
And, exactly, and he lost it.
He lost, yeah, he lost this, right?
Yeah, he lost it, yeah.
He lost this, yes.
Yeah, so it takes guts by Magnus to play a line which actually already backfired once.
Yeah.
Okay, and Wesley has not gone knight c7. He's gone for knight g5.
Yeah, this is what I was afraid of, because after white takes the pawn on d5, in fact, it also allows black, the c6, h1 diagonal is open. Yeah, just king h8, I would say.
Yeah, so I believe we will be seeing some very, very forced lines here, because it gets tactical. Hikaru says that, okay, I can't tolerate this knight on g5 too long. Let me kick it. So h4 on the board.
And how is what's going on after knight f3? Just king g2, and that's fine. Then you pick up the d5 pawn. So how is black defending the d5 pawn now?
No, he's not going to defend the d5 pawn. He's going to he has to sacrifice the d5 pawn. It's too late. So
knight e4.
What's this?
Yeah, he goes knight. He wants to make sure to have this f5 f4 idea at some point.
After knight d5, he would just play king h8, I think.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
But on the other hand, I have b5 here.
No, I cannot take. I wanted to take everything on d5 and fork you with knight c3, but I just not in time.
But b5 you have queen e6, and it's still not over. It's complicated.
Yeah, no, not over at all, because okay, white has this very powerful knight on e4, and
f4.
let's not forget that white king, if something comes, if black manages to push f5, f4 in the right moment and opens things up, then it can really get nasty. So very, very tough position for both sides.
And if instead of knight d5, if white tries to trade with rook d5, do you anyway go king h8?
I guess so, yeah, king h8.
Bishop somewhere.
Oh,
Bishop b2, you've got knight d2.
Oh, but wait a minute. After rook takes d5, would you want to play knight d5?
I was thinking about trading the queens, Hari.
But then rook d8 and rook d1 could be dangerous.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not over, but...
No, this knight on e4 is a very, very dangerous piece.
Yeah, but I think he's going to take rook d5.
He's going to take what?
Rook takes d5, I think.
And then rook d5, knight d5.
Knight d5, yes.
No, he got for b5, guys.
5 directly.
Queen
Okay,
e6,
first question, queen c5, why not?
Then I captured on d5.
Knight d5 and then bishop a3.
Yeah.
So queen e6, just, and with idea f4 and just go mate.
Yeah, this is on the board after queen e6, rook takes d5. And the rook takes d5, but not the c5
And
pawn.
now queen d5. This is very interesting, Peter, because perhaps if you trade and go rook d8, does white have something like c6?
Yeah, that's the big question. Does it work? I mean, if it works, it's just brilliant, but...
Because if you take bc6, he probably can go knight e7, knight c6, so you have to take on d5 first.
Yeah, I want to take on d5.
Rook d5.
And we've got this position on the board, so we might be seeing rook d8. And rook d8 played. What did he have in mind?
Yes,
c6 on the board.
Rook d5.
Bishop a3.
Will he play c7, b6, or what exactly is happening here?
Now c7, I can play rook d1 check, knight d6 in the worst case.
Yeah, that's true. Let's just show this. And if white goes for this, then
yeah,
finally there is this.
Okay, is bishop a3 completely ridiculous after rook d5, threatening c7?
This is some incredible brilliancy if it works, but...
It's very hard to believe, no?
B takes c6?
I don't know, b6 or b takes c6, which one is better, but maybe let's go with bc6 for now.
Right.
So c7 is still a big threat. Rook d8, c7, rook c8, rook b8 doesn't help. And I see the evaluation bar on the screen, Peter. It hasn't moved. Is it activated, deactivated? Is it not working?
Yeah, somehow I also have no clue, because it looks to me like this game is completely out of control, but the engine bar is completely in chilling mode. It might have...
The engine bar has a lot of chill. In fact, we've got a confirmation from our producer that it is working, but this position just, it's
I think
incredible.
it's not working properly. Needs upgrade. So yeah,
And
bishop
look at
a3.
this. Has it? No, it hasn't happened yet, but rook d5 on the board. So bishop a3, very hard to believe it's actually working. So let's
rook
find
d8.
the transfer black.
So what happens to rook d8 without playing b takes c6?
All right, let's back up. So you don't want to open the b file because after b
Yeah,
takes
c7, rook b8
doesn't
yeah.
work because of c7 and rook b8. Peter, can we just have that line on the board?
Yeah, I would love to, but suddenly something very strange happened. It simply doesn't move. I mean, it looked like we have been talking so much about this stop life engine or start life engine that the computer couldn't handle this.
I think because you accused the engine bar, it got angry at you, I think.
Yeah, but it's the terrible drama, because if this is happening, then I don't know what to do. I mean, it just crashed. You know, in live broadcast, the system crashed, cannot handle the tension.
And while the system crashes, we've got confirmation from our producer that Hari is absolutely spot on. The correct way to deal with bishop a3 is in fact rook d8 without taking on c6 and not opening this b file.
But how does Peter move?
We're going to try and set that up, Hari.
Okay.
We're going to try and set that up. As you can see on the live board, black has just gone rook d5. And we're analyzing the line with bishop a3. We're just trying to set it up. We're having a little trouble with the board right now currently. Also, a quick update on the Magnus Jan board. First, let's take a look at our players while we fix that. Hikaru, Wesley. Hikaru has to win that position with the white pieces. A very interesting endgame, really. It looks very, I'm not really sure what's going on. We'll check that out. There's been a couple of moves. Bishop a3 was not played. Let's try and get the live board up. And we see Magnus and Jan there. Sorry, Hari, go on.
Bishop a3 is probably the most critical, as c takes b7 or c7 simply doesn't work. So I expect him to play bishop a3.
Hari, I'm checking it. Bishop a3 was not played.
b6?
Bishop a3 was not played in that position. In fact, he went for cb7.
C takes b7. Okay.
Yeah, he took the pawn on b7. Again, we're just trying to bring that up. And we have an update. Hari, it ended in a draw.
Oh, how?
It ended in a draw. We're going to get the position up, but that means that Wesley So advances to the finals. We've got our first finalist. Great. Wesley So, and who he's going to play against depends on the match between Neko and Carlsen. Jan has to win. But Peter, it's Wesley So who's made it through.
Yeah, incredible. I mean, this is a tragedy that we missed out on this action because the computer just totally crashed. We will have to have a small break and I have to restart the whole program new. But yeah, fantastic result by Wesley. I mean, incredible. He has reached the final. Hikaru tried everything in this game, and I believe that he had his chances, but somehow he found for these complications, and this helped save Wesley.
Absolutely, big congratulations to the American Grandmaster making it to the finals. We're going to be right back. We're just fixing it up. We'll be back in a bit.
Hello everyone, I am Grandmaster Harikrishna Pentala from India. I have won Asian Individual Championship, Commonwealth Championship and World Junior Chess Championship. I would like to tell you why I chose the Timon of Sicilian in particular. So the reason is quite simple. Whenever I feel a bit bored of playing main lines like or main replies like Berlin, Petrov and Marshall, no doubt they are extremely solid and great choice. But whenever I seek for some freshness, Timon of Sicilian is the direction I usually go for. So now let's jump into the course. I would like to show you how I have sorted the course. So first will be introduction. Then there is quick starter. Quick starter guide is something which I personally like a lot. Here you can quickly check which openings you would like to check, and it gives you a good overview of the course. I have divided the course into 26 chapters, as you can see here, and I can say that until move 6 I consider to be anti-Sicilian, so that's one part. And from chapter 11 I consider it to be Timon of Sicilian, and the last two chapters are Scheveningen, which are my favorite. Last but not the least, there are model games. You might get the doubt, okay, we have 26 chapters, so which are the critical ones here to study? Fair enough, and I believe that answer is seventh move Queen F3 without any doubt. Seventh move Queen F3 has the reputation of putting Timon of Sicilian in some kind of an issue, which I think I have solved quite well in this course. And English attack is definitely a setup which you should study. Although I believe that English attack is not that hard to remember, in my personal opinion, and of course Scheveningen to learn the setups, because it's so unique, and I do believe since Gary Kasparov has played this opening, it's full of dynamism and great variations in Scheveningen. So let's take here on your right, you can see there is learn next, review all. Since I am the author, I have already studied some of the moves, so therefore I have 850 review all, which means I have studied them. And learn next is something when I press it, the move trainer is going to show me that I need to play knight f6 after queen f3. So you can, when you are ready and you remember, you can press the next. And after queen f3, as you can see here, quiz 1, the 1 to 3 is nothing, but you need to show 3 times that you do remember. So you need to focus. And so here I would like to show you what is review all. So in review all, since I say I'm telling move trainer that I have already learned the moves and I want to revise it. While doing this, you are going to get some doubts, which as a Timon of Chessable community, we are going to discuss about them in the discussion which is inside the course. So the video will sync you with the introduction chapter or any other chapter where I am mentioning. So this way you have an idea on which variation you are looking into, and then you also hear what I have got to say about that particular position. And in discussions, of course, I am going to check how suggestions or any variation updates, etc. And sometimes there can be updates on model games or some other variations, as we are going to see a lot of games at various levels. That's all about the course, and thank you for watching this Speak Inside, and welcome once again to the Timon of Sicilian, and I do hope you enjoy this course. Thank you.
And that was Hari Krishna's lifetime repertoire on the Sicilian Taimanov. Definitely check it out if you're looking for an opening with the Sicilian. But for now, it was incredible action. We are back. Everything's fixed. I think, as Peter was saying, the evaluation bar got just very upset with us and everything crashed for that moment. But what drama it's been. Peter, let's quickly take a look at what really happened in those last couple of moves. This is how it is. Wesley So advances to the finals of the first leg of the Champions Chess Tour, the Skilling Open. He's going to be playing either against Jan Nepomniachtchi or Magnus Carlsen. As of now, Jan has to win this game to make it to the playoffs. Peter, take us through these last few moves of this game.
Yeah, I mean, Tanya, you confused me completely, because you came up with this stunning move, Bishop A3, after which I was not 100% sure how to react with the black pieces. And I felt like this was the only way to mix things up. I don't know the objective evaluation, but definitely it's a shocking move that you sacrifice a piece and then follow it up with Bishop A3. The move that Hikaru came up with, C takes B7, this feels like after Rook D8, Rook A1, maybe he simply missed this defensive move, Knight C5, because all of a sudden, after Rook A8, Black has Knight takes B7, protecting the Rook, and eliminates this very powerful pawn. So after knight c5, there was nothing else than to play rook a7, which is a very, very sad move, because black can simply grab the pawn on b7, rook takes b7, rook d1 check, king g2, rook takes c1, and it's clear already that white is begging for a draw. Rook b8 check, king f7, and Wesley felt like, okay, draw is enough. I even don't have to play a move like bishop f8 because, okay, black had all the chances, b6, rook b1, but it's simply not important, not necessary. Maybe white is holding, but Wesley did not want to find it out. He just fixed the draw and secured his spot in the finals.
A very professional decision, Hari, to end it like this.
Yeah, I think Hikaru missed the knight c5 move. He was just counting on the move knight d6, and I think after knight d6, white can play rook a7. But still, I can take knight b7. Yeah, I don't know what was the point.
Yeah,
and this is what happened, but with the knight on c5. And while we were fixing things up, Hari and I were discussing about the move bishop a3, but perhaps after
Rook d8.
we felt that it doesn't work because of the move rook to d8, taking in control the last rank and queening squares, because white's big threat was c7.
And then something like bishop f8, or how do you react?
Not sure how, but
because I'm still at least having rook d1 idea.
Yeah, so
maybe
something
knight
like
c3 here?
can we play bishop f6, king f7, king d6 just to stabilize the whole thing, or it's?
Yeah, this is a very professional way, but I mean it's clear to me that somehow Hikaru missed something. So maybe this knight c5 or knight d6, that after rook a8, knight takes b7 protects back the rook. I guess there was some kind of hallucination, because if it's not, then definitely, I mean, this position at least he can try to play. Maybe objectively it's better for black. I mean, black will play something like knight c3, knight d5. It's clear that white is not fighting for advantage, but I mean, compared to what happened in the game, it would have been better. Sure. In any case, very, very big success for Wesley. So something that nobody had expected, that Hikaru Nakamura is knocked out of the tournament.
Yes, especially the 88% of the people of Instagram hadn't expected that at all, but Wesley saw, and as Sam and Peter had actually said, that he is, in fact, Sam had mentioned that he would put Wesley and Hikaru as the number 2, number 3 blitz players in the world in no particular order. So anything is possible, but the other game in which Jan, if he has to stay alive, he needs to win here with the black pieces. What are the chances? First impressions, it doesn't look like the chances are very high. Hari.
No, I think the chances are quite good here. So after a move like bishop h4, bishop f2, black can simply place the rook on c6, king d8, king c7, followed by rook d8 and bringing, regrouping the pieces. And if needed, black can play knight c5 at some point. So black is controlling everything here.
So white's double bishop doesn't really count for anything, and the fact that he could also potentially double on the b file, trying to make knight c5 a little more difficult.
Yeah. I mean, rook c6, white would probably play rook b2, but is it white's move or it's okay?
It's white's move, Hari.
So rook b2, king d8, rook a b1, king c7. So first I stop any kind of counter, and if a5, I guess b5 is possible. I think rook b2, which happened in the game, is nice, because black has to waste a move in order to move the bishop from h4.
Oh, very nice, because king d8 currently is not a possibility with the bishop on h4. That's actually a really nice subtlety, making sure that black is not able to get his rook out or the king in time to defend the b6 pawn as easily. Black is a pawn up, but at least for now, the e6, f5 pawns don't really matter. How can black create chances in this position?
Yeah, I also feel that it was very, very nice that Hari mentioned and spotted this king d8, king c7, because now we can really appreciate the small little move rook b2. Without seeing this king d8, king c7, we would be asking, okay, why is Magnus taking it so slowly with the move rook b2? We already got an answer. The position is very interesting. Okay, one question is, should black just retreat to c6 with the rook? Anyway, but white can play the move rook a b1, insisting still to keep an eye on the d8 square. Oops, I don't know how I'm managing this these terrible mistakes. That's how the mouse slips are happening to me as well. You see, it's not just under stress. It can happen at any moment.
Of course, yeah. So Black would like to have the king on c7, but he's not in time as he has to play either g5 or f6. But then White simply plays bishop f2 on bishop b6, after which it should end in a draw. I mean, at least.
Yeah, but it seems to me like thanks to this nice finesse of not letting king d8, king c7 happen, Magnus keeps things under control, and if he is able to hit the b6 pawn, then there will never be any winning chances for Black.
Yeah, I don't think Black has winning chances here. I think Black is just trying to survive here.
Exactly. Exactly.
And bishop f2 now played that Black can't go king d8, king c7. But I have to say, Peter, I'm thinking about their first two clashes today. Jan really found his chances in game one. And I know there was that queen c7 trick, which Magnus missed, but very difficult to spot. And that was the only time when Magnus had that chance. Otherwise, a brilliantly played win in the first game of today's set. Going into game two, that queen d6 situation, in all probability, the more you think about it, the more you feel it's probably a mouse slip. Missing rook h6. And a bit of a heartbreak here, really, because I think today, Jan played extremely well in all the games, as well as yesterday in set one. Having those incredible chances in game two and game three. It's tough. Chess is tough.
I think last three matches against Anish, not last three, but the match against Anish, it was pretty same situation. Like Anish was better probably the entire match. If I'm not mistaken, he was winning in some of the games and keeping total control, but he lost one game and afterwards simply no chance. And I believe this is the same situation in this match as well. But I mean, the match is still not over. So let's see if Jan can create some chances here.
All right, so bishop f2, how can Jan create chances? It's hitting b6. Rook c6 to me looks like the only way to defend the pawn. Do we have anything better than that, Peter?
I just would like to add that Magnus is so smart and so good when he's leading. Of course, when you are leading and you are playing the last game with the white pieces, it's kind of so-called easy, but believe me, it's by far not so easy. And how many people have lost their game with the white pieces when it was not necessary at all. And it feels to me like Magnus is already so used to this situation because he has been so often in these shoes that he's leading, and he just relies on his experience. I mean, he knows that he has already done it 100 times, and he's completely sure that he's going to do it one more time.
One more time, yeah. I don't see any other way of defending this pawn on b6 apart from rook c6. But on the other hand, Jan might be thinking if he should exchange one pair of rooks or to keep the rook on c3. Maybe it gives him more chances. In any case, I mean, if just rook bishop versus rook bishop is left, of course.
Wow. Hari, take a look at what Jan has done.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter if he just stays rook c6 and plays the logical continuation. He is not. He has zero chances. So this way, okay, it's probably 10% chances of him winning, but still he has some chances. So from that perspective, it makes sense to go for such.
Would you call this a desperate attempt?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, but it was also logical. I mean, I felt like there is no way Jan is not going to play the move f5. Yeah. On the other hand, the big question, what does it give you? Because it's all about, can you really get e5, e4 in nicely and create counterplay, or does it bring you anything? That's the key question.
So what happens to e4 here?
Yeah, I felt like maybe he just wants to take f takes e4.
Okay. But at least here, knight takes e4 and well,
Maybe
I wanted to play knight
e5?
c5.
No,
but
bishop e4 is hanging. Sorry.
knight c5 maybe.
Yeah, knight c5.
Yeah, e4 on the board. I mean, knight c5, I wanted to trap your rook with king d2. I'm not sure if I can, but I wanted.
No,
Knight
and
d3
knight
doesn't
d3,
help.
king c3 also fine.
Yeah, I mean, okay, because draw is enough. It's sometimes also Magnus's cynical approach. No, that we have seen it against Anish in the last game. He was clearly better, but he had no intention of winning. Just securing a draw was all he wanted from his better position.
Is there a better check in the position after fe4? Other ideas like knight e4 played?
Yeah.
King to g1. That's an interesting choice to make.
I think it's safe, no? So just keeping, I mean, king is safe on g1. There is no dark square bishop for black. So yeah, it should be just a draw here.
Yeah, the point is, that if Magnus would need to win this game, I would say that he has very good chances of winning this endgame. But now that all Magnus needs is a draw, we are speculating about whether black has any winning chances.
I think bishop f1.
Yeah, but even something like just bishop takes c5 and then a5 and rook b6, yeah, also very, very nice.
Yeah.
I mean, anything for Magnus, it's up to him to decide what type of position he wants to play. If he is, and he captures on c5 and fixes the pawn. I mean, this bishop on this is such a lovely piece. It hides the a6 pawn. It's very nicely protected by the pawn. White has the b6 square for the rook. And black will have to try with some activity to liquidate somehow, but that's all he can try.
He's listening to you, Peter.
What else to do? I mean, this position, there is just nothing to be done. Yeah, rook f6, the best defense. I mean, at least make sure that if white ever takes on f6, which he will never do, then he would get g takes f6 and then f5, e4 would give the desired dynamic that black needs. Without the f pawn, black will never be able to push e4.
Just rook a b1 is good, no? Or...
Okay, one thing to mention that there is some rook takes a5 trick in the air, but that's it.
With rook a b1, you can't take on a5 because of rook f6, g f6, rook b8, rook c5, queen, bishop a6, right?
Yeah, bishop a6. But of course, black can play king f7, so maybe it's... And he threatens to take on a5 now.
Yeah, when I look at this position, I simply feel that the problem was that in the quarterfinals we have seen 3 comebacks, and the statistic was against the players. Because and it's also nice on one side, to show that it's not automatic that you can come back, because people might be having this feeling that if 3 of the 4 players manage to come back, then maybe this is very natural, it's very thematic. No, exactly. That's why we felt like this is incredible, and it was amazing drama and fantastic that those comebacks happened. But now in the semifinals, I don't believe that we're gonna see any playoff.
Looks very difficult right now, Peter. And I have to say, I think Wesley really dominated his match against Hikaru. The set that he won, and even today, he failed to convert a lot of good positions, and it was not just about the result, but the quality of play from Wesley was incredibly high.
I agree that he played really well entire match, and deservedly won his match against Hikaru. And I mean, the position is really quite equal, but you see, when you just need to hold, you kind of try wanting to finish the game however as quickly as possible. Normal circumstances, I think Magnus would simply go bishop f1 and keep his double bishop advantage and try forever.
Yeah, this is the moment Harry was referring to, just to keep the 2 bishops, and you torture the opponent. However, Magnus only needs a draw. He doesn't really need all these things. Everything he needs to have a position where he cannot lose. In this regard, I do feel that Jan is doing an incredible job psychologically, because as long as he keeps this f6, I don't know what is this. I mean, I have to change the mouse before playing the next tournament. You see, I mean, it's just unbelievable. And I want to change, and I cannot kick this diagonal out anymore. Yeah. So, okay, rook f1.
King f7, are we expecting king f7?
Yeah, I wanted to say that as long as black keeps this rook on f6, and he has the potential of taking back with the pawn on f6. For example, let's just imagine one scenario if white is helping black to achieve what he wants. I mean, basically this is usually a completely dead draw, and believe me, of course, this is completely dead, because white will play rook a8, a6, a7, and after change the pawns. But still, thanks to these connected pawns, black has a little bit of hope. It's not those pawns when you see this pawn would be, for example, on g7 or something, and you cannot do anything. The only problem, it brings nothing, and Jan takes on b6 and plays bishop b7.
So he wants to go e4 next?
Yeah,
No, just
given the chance, yes, but I mean, okay, white can play. No, he wants to make sure that white is not in time to, I mean, white simply cannot shut down the game, yeah, because after rook a1, he still has the move a5. And let's just imagine that black king comes to the center, and it already looks quite promising. The only problem is it's white to move, and Magnus will not give any kind of chance here for Jan.
What's the move here?
But it was a very nice choice, yeah?
Yeah. So, I mean, he has to go for this. He cannot exchange the a pawn for b pawn, and then absolutely no chance for white. No chance for black. I'm sorry.
It's incredible how these players find, you know, the tiniest of opportunity or the possibilities to make something out of the position. c4 played, and how should black continue here? Is e4 something that should be considered, or the pawn is best at e5?
I would say on e5, as king f2, king a3 will come if the pawn is on e4.
That's a very nice point, Hari, because then you get the d4 square for the king as well. All right, so he's gone for a5, and I saw a big jump in the evaluation bar. Why does the computer hate this move so much?
Because it's probably lost, no?
Well, it runs into this bishop f5. Now white is threatening to give bishop e6 check, followed by rook f7. And you don't have this rook takes c2 idea, because the bishop on e6 will protect the c4 pawn. Earlier, one move before, the pawn on c2 would have been hanging in all these positions. Black is also not able to bring his king closer, because it runs into a discover check by bishop c8. So yeah, Jan is in big trouble in a must-win situation.
Actually, the funny thing is, he has to play rook c6 in order to, stop this bishop e6, rook f7. But I think white can continue playing for advantage, but I wouldn't be surprised if Magnus just plays rook a1 and rook a5 just to finish the game.
Yeah, or you can even play rook b1, yeah, because anyway you are starting bishop e4.
Yeah, bishop e4, yes.
I have to come back, and of course white has many possibilities to continue, but it's very logical just to repeat. Yeah, and Jan in fact felt like, okay, there is nothing to hope for, and he offered himself the draw. So Magnus is in the finals.
Okay.
Oh my God, when we see Jan very disappointed. Very understandable, because he really had a big shot today, Peter, especially after that first game win that we saw Jan drawing first blood in his game against Magnus. And in the second game, he had it all under control, but one slip and Magnus did not give him a chance after that. A big heartbreak for Jan Nepomniachtchi, as there's no playoff. So we've got both our finalists. We're going to be seeing Magnus Carlsen take on Wesley So in the Skilling Open finals. Hari, your thoughts on that matchup?
Well, I think I mean, it would be stupid to not pick Magnus, but okay, I have to, at some point be brave, and I will pick so Wesley. I think Magnus plays best in the finals. If you come, I expect him to play really well in the finals, and I also, I mean, it's clear that Wesley is in really great shape for this event, and he played well entire, all the rounds, and more importantly, who is fresh, and who keeps up with the pressure, and it's final. And not to forget that we witnessed a final between Magnus versus So Wesley in the uh, Fisher Random World Championship final. So it's going to be a great fight between both very strong players, and whoever wins, I hope that the games will be of high quality.
Well, when it's these two players, we can't expect anything less, and I'm sure that's what we're going to be treated to. And the Fisher Random World Championship match that you were talking about, Hari, it was in fact Wesley So who beat Magnus Carlsen there. So can't really, anything can happen to extremely strong, short for time control, time format players. Peter, your thoughts on today's semifinals and tomorrow's match coming up?
Yeah, I also had immediately this Fisher Random match between the two players in my mind, because, I also feel like that Wesley is a type of player that if he starts playing good, and in knockout format, basically, if you keep on progressing, it means that you are playing good. He's getting his confidence, and if he's getting his confidence, then he can show that he can beat anyone in the world. And in this regard, I also feel that Magnus definitely in the finals usually is the favorite, but having seen that Magnus was so far a little bit struggling in the event, I would say that unless Magnus shows his really best chess, then we can actually witness a surprise. So I would give right now, after what we have seen so far in the tournament, that both players have at least 50% chance of winning the finals.
All right, that's
what Peter's... about you, Tanya?
I just do the questions, I don't answer them.
Okay, you are the boss. Okay.
No, but again, Peter's hot take, 50% chances. Peter, when will we get a clear-cut, non-diplomatic answer from you is what I want to know.
No, but actually I saw that 50-50 is usually people would have expected that Magnus should be at least like 55 or 60 favorite. No, I felt like I'm not diplomatic at all, because 50-50 simply means that I believe that Wesley has equal chances than Magnus, and that's already something in my opinion. I mean, it shows how much respect we have gathered for Wesley's performance in this tournament.
What really amazes me is that we've spoken about this again and again, and the world champion himself in his interviews has said it, that he's not very happy with the quality of his play in this event so far. Even the matches that he's won, he said that he struggled in them. And Hari, it's quite interesting that despite not being on his A form, and despite saying that he's struggling, which we've seen, he still cruises through to the finals, avoiding playoffs.
Well, I think even when he wins some big tournament, at the end he would say, I played not my best, but I simply won with 2 points, ahead of the second player. Well, I guess that's something, I mentioned it in a funny way, but he says he wants to achieve something really high, and that's why when he feels he couldn't reach, he's upset, he's unhappy about it. But I feel in this event so far, he's not, he didn't do something special, or he didn't play well. This is absolutely true. But it's different with Magnus. It's you can say some players have tendency to play best, and then slowly they can make mistakes. With Magnus, it's just every match is different. So you never know how he's going to play in final. You can just it's possible that he can be a completely different person and play some of his best chess. I cannot be sure.
So his form can change day by day.
He has the ability to to strike when it is really needed, and I think that is one of the reasons why he won so many playoffs, so many finals and championship, because that is the key point when you need to win the tournaments.
So when he's playing well, he almost seems unstoppable. But even when he's not at his best, when it matters the most, he brings out the best in him.
Yeah, that's what I think so.
Very interesting. But I think what the three of us can agree on, Hari and Peter, is that Wesley So has definitely shown absolutely an incredibly convincing performance, and he definitely belongs in the final. If we just see the way the others have played, how he's played his matches, I think a very well-deserved spot in the finals.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you know what? It's very interesting that when I'm thinking back about the tour, the previous tour, because that's always on our mind, this is still the very first event of the new Champions Tour, then there was only one event that Wesley So participated, and he has actually very smoothly qualified in the preliminaries in the Lindor SAB tournament. And who stopped him? Exactly, Magnus in the quarterfinals. And that was kind of very, very tricky, because Magnus just qualified in the very last game, beating Alireza Firuza. And Wesley was in a brilliant shape, playing very nice chess. And Magnus then in the knockout stage just played fantastically against Wesley and gave Wesley no chance. However, that was the quarterfinals. And that's why I felt like, for Wesley, it's very, very important to get more and more confidence. And when he plays so well, like he did in this event all the way throughout, and beating Hikaru Nakamura in the semifinal should give him even more extra energy, because, okay, we have seen how dangerous and how good Hikaru is throughout the previous tour. We had that epic final between Magnus Carlsen and Hikaru Nakamura, so the expectations were very high. People were thinking that, of course, these two guys will fight it out. But this tour shows that no. I mean, there are so many other guys who are also capable of playing not only brilliant, but also very successfully in this format. So I think this adds to the excitement of the whole tour.
Absolutely. And let's not forget that in the St. Louis Rapid and Blitz, it was Magnus Carlsen and Wesley So who did emerge joint champions in that event as well. So Wesley So has been on his A game and his top form. I think we're in for an absolutely epic final, as I like to say it. Hari, with that, thank you so much for joining us. It's just so much fun to commentate with you, and your insights are incredible. Peter, I think we have to say bye to Hari now.
Thank you very much, Tanya and Peter. It is my pleasure, and I absolutely enjoyed. I mean, this is also kind of me keeping my shape, to calculating some variations and not to be lazy during this, staying all the time at home. So I'm happy to be here and comment along both of you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Hari.
Hari, we really hope you can find some time to join us again, because it's, like I said, phenomenal. And a reminder to all our viewers that Hari Krishna's course on the Taimanov is out on Chessable. Check that out. It's pretty much all you need if you're looking for playing the Sicilian Taimanov or a line in the Sicilian. Hari, thank you so much for joining us. And Peter, your final thoughts before we say bye to our audience.
Yeah, well, I mean, unfortunately, there was no playoff, because that could have been made even more dramatic, but we have seen very good chess. I mean, I'm very happy for Jan also that he managed to win the very first game, because it was also like a question, how will Magnus react to that situation? And then we got an answer that he bounces back. Of course, if it turns out that there really was a mouse slip with this Queen D6 move, that will make Jan's loss even more heartbreaking. Nevertheless, I mean, Magnus winning that game and bouncing back showed again why he's so feared. I mean, Jan pointed out that nobody fears him, but in this roster. However, I think everybody is pissed that he keeps on winning whenever he loses, because that's kind of the moment when you can make your opponent, at least a little bit shaky. And Magnus always overcomes that shaky moment very quickly. And that's something that I think bothers the top players, because I mean, if he's capable of doing that, I would also love to do it, but I'm not. This gives the psychological advantage to Magnus, and Magnus is now again in the finals. What Wesley has done against Hikaru, it was just unbelievable. I mean, he was really controlling Hikaru. Nevertheless, the match was incredibly dramatic, because we have seen that Wesley had some blackouts. Also, Hikaru had some misses. I mean, a giant fight, but finally Wesley's in the final. Well deserved. I mean, altogether, I think he was the more stable player.
Well, we just have an amazing final lined up for us. It's going to be a treat. So don't forget to join us, same time, same place. We'll be here. And a big reminder to all of you, you have until tomorrow to vote for your player to bring him back into the tour for the December major. So go on championschesstour.com. All details are on it. You have only until tomorrow, once again, to bring a player back who did not make it to the quarterfinals. And with that, Peter, let's get some rest, because we've got a tremendous final on our hands.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you very much, everyone, for watching, and stay tuned, because I mean, tomorrow and after tomorrow, the finals will be just incredible. I mean, don't miss it.
Enthusiastic hello to all the chess lovers and the Chessable fans. I have also become one of them after making this course. I hope you guys are doing great in these tough pandemic times, and more strength to you guys. Let me introduce myself. This is Grandmaster SP Sethuraman from India, the Indian man with 3 names, like Maxim Vachier-Lagrave, who also has 3 names. I have a FIDE rating of 2644, and some of my notable achievements are that I have won the Asian Championship in the year 2016 and have been part of the bronze winning Indian team in the Olympiad 2014. So apart from that, I have represented Team India in various official events like Asian teams, World teams, and the Olympiad. I will be presenting you guys one E4, E5 with the black side. And in Chessable, I found this move trainer technology very impressive, which I will show you guys while checking the chapters. I have spent 2 months of time to prepare this course, backed up with thorough analysis by the engines. And I have used Leela Chess 0 and Stockfish 12 as an analytical tool. And I can assure you guys that it will be of great quality with top-notch novelties and remarkable insights with loads of explanation. So let's browse into the chapter. So these are the 29 opening chapters in the course, along with the exercises and the model games. So like I said, I have often trodden to the offbeat paths. So we will see one chapter in Ponziani, where even in some quiet sidelines, I have found some swashbuckling ideas, presenting my own theory, like let's say this variation with Bishop E2, a peculiar move, aiming for slow play, but here, like I said, I found a swashbuckling idea with G5. And I was intrigued by this move, as there are only 5 games in the database, and it contains a lot of fascinating ideas, and such direction really motivated me to probe further. And you can see quite often in many of the systems ideas like G5. So like, let's say even in the 4 knights variation, I have come up with the out-of-box approach. Like, let's go to the 4 knights knight d4 variation. And here, as you know, like all the guys have been aware of this move, Bishop b4, which is the classical main line, which leads to tons of theoretical discussions. But I don't know how many of you guys know this move, interesting move, knight e4, a Bohemian approach, which simply sidesteps tons of theoretical debate. And I was really proud of this invention upon the research of this course, as I was myself not aware of this move, and when I probed into it into depth, I found many instructive and interesting variations for both sides, and I really hope after this course this move will catch some fire, as it simply kills a lot of theory and it leads to highly tactical and dynamic play. For instance, knight c6, then knight c3, the race begins, and I will leave the suspense here, as you will see in the main course how it goes. And there are two versions, video and videoless version. The video version will be packed with full of stories and historical facts too. Like I have included many facts of the opening systems which even I was not aware of. The history behind each opening always fascinated me, and you can find as well. So go for it, guys, and you will never regret it of buying my course, and I hope it will really be useful for you guys and benefit it in every way to approach e5, 1 e4 e5 in a different light, in a more aggressive light. And yes, thank you guys for patiently listening, and good luck with the course. My best wishes. Signing off from you, Grandmaster SP Sethuraman. Thank you.